Welcome, one and all, to the Sunday show after dark. The show that isn't the Sunday show, but is also the Sunday show, but not. This is the December 15th in the year of our Dark Lord 2024. We're coming up on the end of it. And thank goodness, because this year has been a hell of a decade. John, how are you today, my friend?
I am sick, but right. I'm here.
Are you sick, or are you like sick?
No, definitely not sick.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, I get like a sinus thing in my head. So if anybody thinks that I sound a little off, it's not because I've been like pounding brewskis all day. I've been sick. So I will do my.
You have been pounding brewskis, but that is not why you sound this way.
No, I have not been doing that. I've been legitimately sick.
Crushing a few cans, hopping on the line. Yeah, dude, I'm sorry to hear you're feeling badly. I hope you feel better soonly.
Yeah, me too. Hopefully we get some good calls in here. Because I'm hyped up. I'm all doped up on Mucinex and I'm ready to go.
Hell yeah. We got a great show for everybody tonight. Number on the bottom of the screen there, 720-619-2288. If you are a theist or a believer in some sort of supernatural entities, if you believe in ghosts and demons and magic and aliens and big feats, and not the usual kind, like the real big kind, like or any of those things, or if you're a science denier of any kind, if you are a creationist or a flat earther or a transphobe or an anti-vaxxer or somebody else who wants to call in and argue a little bit about science, I always love those calls as well. And we got lines open for you. So call that number on the bottom of the screen, 720-619-2288, or use the web link in the description below. Call in that way. That way we can actually talk to you and ask what you believe and why you believe it. And if you're right, you could be broadcasting your beliefs to tens of thousands of people who could learn a lot. So please call in and let us know what you think and why you think it. Before we get started, got a couple of quick updates that I want to go over. Number one is that we're coming close to the. Are we talking about the mugs? Are we saying the mugs publicly?
I think people know the mugs are happening, but we haven't
currently saying it publicly. So
we are. It's fine. I mean, we haven't announced it as a thing yet, but there'll be mugs. You can go for it.
There may or may not be mugs. Don't get too excited. But there's probably going to be mugs. And I just want to let you know that I'm not going to say what my design is yet, but Arden just sent me the first mock-up, and it's phenomenal. It's coming along really well, and I love the direction it's going. So I think you're going to like it. We also got other shows on this channel. Right now, it's a Sunday show after dark with me and John, but then we've also got Skeptalk with Erika coming up tomorrow. I don't know who her guest is, but she's gonna be running Skeptalk. Then we got Chewed Gum with Alyssa and Eve, and then we've got the Hang Up with Matt and Arden, and then we've got TACIS, the Transatlantic Call-In Show with Arden and Luxander, circling all the way back around to the Sunday show next week, which is with me and Eve. So stay tuned for all of the things. Get excited for all the things. And also, one more thing. I don't usually like to call people out specifically, but this is just it's too much fun for me. There is one commenter who comments under almost every show on this channel. I know they comment under pretty much everything that I do on this channel. I see them on all sorts of other shows that we run as well. At JGreez, JGreez, their profile picture is a fish. Literally every single show they comment asking what is a woman and how can you prove what a woman is and how can no one define women and you don't believe in equality because you don't know what women is and all these things. And I have invited this person to call in and we will compare definitions of woman 1,000,000 times, and they keep not doing it, and they keep just leeching off of our fans and getting all the attention that they want from the people who watch these shows. So if you see this person in the chat, please encourage them to call in. Don't debate with them because they don't give a shit. They're not there for that. I just really, really, really want to hear their definition of the word woman. I want it so badly. It burns inside of me that this person thinks they know what this word means. I want to know.
Forrest, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be disappointed because you know what they're going to say. Yeah, you know what? They're just going to be like, well, look, if you look down and you see a pee-pee, then that means you're not a woman. And that's
all it is. Yeah, and like we're gonna have a whole, but like the reality is they are never going to call in. We all know they're never going to call in. They're going to stay behind the safety of their keyboard and they're going to continue to try to leech off of our audience. But like, if when you see this person in the chat, please, I want everybody to help me. Please encourage them to call in. It would be a lot of fun. With that, like I said, I don't like singling people out too often, but like I've talked to this person so many times, I want somebody to tell them to call in for me. We've got a bunch of calls already lining up. And I see, I'm sure you have the call screen open. Do you have a preference? Because I'm looking at line number 2 there, and I'm liking that one.
Oh yeah, it doesn't matter to me. Take whichever one you want. I'm good for anything.
All right, sweet chicken. Let's start then with Maureen, pronoun she, her, calling in all the way from Canada, who's a theist who wants a question for John, wants to know if John felt sadness leaving God. Maureen, you are on the line with Forrest and the godless engineer. How are you doing today?
Fine. How are you guys?
Doing good, Maureen.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I wanted to ask, I guess John was religious at one point. I was just wondering how that felt to you when you finally, I guess broke free of it or however you want to put it. Was it a long time? Was there a sadness or did you just say, nope, that's it?
No, I mean, there was no sadness. I mean, I would say the most difficult part of it was definitely admitting to myself that I didn't believe in God, but I didn't feel like any kind of, like I didn't mourn, my leaving faith behind or anything like that. I rather enjoyed the complexities of my new worldview, like trying to figure that out and everything. It was kind of like, I was kind of finally getting to a spot where I could sort of figure things out for myself instead of relying on other people to tell me what to think. Because I had done that for so long that was just kind of like how I always operated, was like I believed whatever people told me to believe, like as far as like God goes and everything like that. And I had been struggling with like belief for a while. Because I had so much trouble with like depression and everything like that it was rather difficult for me, like to I guess understand God through my own particular perspective, being that I didn't know it at the time, but I was suffering from clinical depression, and so like I definitely didn't feel any kind of sadness leaving faith behind. It was more I was more excited about coming into like my own ideals, coming into my own point of view of the world, and developing my own self beyond what I had been told to believe. And so I was more excited than anything. What about you, Forrest? When I don't know if you ever believed in the past. Sorry, Maureen. I was curious about Forrest's experience.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah, no, I never had like the same kind of like God beliefs that a lot of believers do. I was raised pagan. I did believe in some God type claims, but not nearly the same as somebody who like lived by a church dogma or doctrine or anything like that. And I actually got progressively happier as well whenever I started deconstructing those things, because like I believed in ghosts and spirits and magic and angels and demons and gods of various calibers, and I did all this witchcraft and drawing pentagrams and burning certain herbs and chanting certain chants and doing different like spiritual incantations to get myself into trances to believe and connect and all these things. And letting go of all that was immeasurably freeing, because it helped me to realize that the world is something that's like understandable. Even if I don't understand it, it is understandable. And that there isn't this weird, vague, ethereal, feeling-based dimension of reality out there. My ancestors aren't watching me all the time while I'm trying to eat and read and masturbate. No one's caring about that. And I'm free to make my own choices and live my own life the way that I want. It changed my philosophy. It changed my worldview. And it made me, I think, a way better and more functional person to deconstruct those beliefs.
Okay. So yeah, I get the feeling that it's been freeing for you guys. You don't seem to think it was difficult to just happen for you. Like, I guess that's what I'm trying to.
Nope, nobody said that. Nobody said that.
No?
no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
sorry.
Lots. Oh no, I'm just saying. Lots of people would agree with us that like letting go of their religion and freeing themselves from the chains of their religion was an immensely freeing and fulfilling and life altering thing. But it is often very difficult for a lot of people. It's very scary and it's very uncomfortable. And even for me, it was there's parts of it that suck. Like I used to believe that my dad would be around forever, that my grandpa would be around forever, that all these loved ones I've lost would be. Letting go of that kind of sucks. But at the end of the day, I'm happier in a world where I know souls aren't real than I am in a world where I might be able to get to see, my loved ones in some theme park somewhere,
Yeah, and I just to add, I've heard a lot of different atheists out there who experience, so even after losing faith, like they're still afraid of hell and like this whole concept of hell and how they were brought up with like, that concept affecting like their behavior and stuff. They are still afraid of it, even after they leave religion. So I mean, it's never as easy as it was, at least for me, because for me it was more of like I hate to say a light switch, but like as far as like not believing in Yahweh, it was a light switch. But like finally coming to terms with not believing in God was a little bit more tricky, took a lot more time. But once I analytically thought through it and I no longer believed, like it was pretty like, oh, I don't believe anymore kind of thing. And it didn't have any other kind of, I guess, effect on me, after that. But a lot of people don't have that same experience.
Yeah. I've never had a fear of like hell was going to happen to me. I don't think my fear of leaving, God behind is because of a fear of punishment. I'm just not sure why it is that I can't leave it behind. I don't, I see where it would be freeing.
Definitely. And so like, I'm sorry, you go ahead, John. It looks like you had something to
say. Sorry. So are you kind of, are you kind of in the midst of deconstruction right now? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I'm questioning, why I believe, like, I know there's no proof of a God, and I still can't get over why it is that I don't want to leave him behind or leave it behind,
Right.
So yeah, I'm in the middle of it. Yeah.
So the thing is, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure we've spoken, Maureen, before. So if I'm repeating anything to you that you've heard before, okay, cool. So if I'm repeating any of this, interrupt me and tell me to shut the fuck up. But like, have I talked to you about terror management before?
No.
Okay. So there's this idea of why we invent gods and not even just gods, but like lots and lots of like conspiracy theories and things as well. And it's this idea of terror management theory. And what that means is the idea that we live in a completely uncontrolled universe, the idea that there is no meaning to anything and that you're just going to die and it all goes black and that's it. And that there is no real punishment and there is no real reward and that nobody's actually at the controls because there are no controls. Like, these are genuinely terrifying things. And as scary as the idea of a shadow government of lizard people that have a dome over the earth to keep you from learning about the space civilization that's beaming thoughts into your heads through your fillings and like all, as scary as that shit is, it's much less scary than you are alone in the universe and nothing really matters. And so this idea of terror management theory is not only where we get all these different, whatever crazy ideas about people coming up with these big plans and plots and things, but also plays a lot into where we get ideas of God. Even if you can say, honestly, as you have, You have no reason to believe in this. You have no evidence for this. There is no good reason to hold on this belief. You're not, I'm pretty sure I heard you say you're not really worried about hell anymore, and you're not really worried about heaven anymore.
No.
You just have this just thing that's just you're holding on to. If I had to guess, and again, it is just, I don't know your mind, dude, but like, I would bet that has something to do with it, is that you are very used to the comfort of knowing that something, anything, is in some kind of control. And you may be so used to that comfort that you don't even think of it as comfort. You just take it for granted at this point. And that you're asking, especially considering the questions that you're asking right now about, like, was it just easy for you? Were you sad? Was it, how it, like, no, fuck, dude, it is scary out here, but it is so much more cool and so much more fun and so much more fulfilling to be out here in the scary and decide what to do with that than it is to live under a safety blanket of stuff that doesn't exist. And so I think if I had to guess, I think that might be where your last vestiges of belief might lie. And I encourage you in that case, if you think that is where it is, if you agree with me, I would encourage you to just kind of explore the idea of, like, what would change about your life if you did let go of that? What would it look like? Like, not like, what would you do even? Just like, what would it look like if the universe indeed was godless and meaningless and purposeless, and you actually had the opportunity to do whatever the fuck you wanted with your life? What would that imply to you? What would that mean to you? What would you do with that information? And would it be such a bad thing to live on your own terms? Would it be really as scary as you might think it is?
I don't know. Right now, I'm thinking it would be scary.
But, a little bit at first. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the best roller coasters are, Maureen.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'm a fearful person. I guess I've let that kind of rule most of my life, just being afraid of things. And I guess I found a faith in a God as very comforting. So yeah. I guess that's
you are not the only one by billions.
Well,
I know.
Okay.
Well, I know for me, like I had said that it was difficult for me to admit that I was an atheist for the longest time. And the reason why was just because I had grown up in an environment that had taught me that it was wrong to not believe in God. And I'm wondering could that somehow be it? Like, I don't know if you grew up like in a very conservative Christian kind of background or what that looked like, but I'm just kind of curious.
No, I'm not. I don't think.
Okay.
See, my father never believed in God, but my mother was a Catholic, my grandmother, and I grew up with that. And maybe that's where I found comfort in that side, because he was a non-believer, but he was also, a very harsh man. He was an alcoholic. He had his problems. Whereas I saw my mother as a good person and and maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's why I clung on to the religious part of it, because I saw it as good, and I saw him as not believing being part of his problem. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure, but
I think
definitely fear.
Maureen, I think you are human, and I think you need to forgive yourself for that.
Okay.
You're talking about fear. And yeah, absolutely. It's a really good song by, I think it was Incubus, Drive, you know what I mean? How long am I going to let the fear take the wheel and steer, and I'll hold the wheel and drive no matter what. Like, that's a big part of growing up in lots of different ways. And growing up doesn't just mean becoming an adult. It's everything. It's so many. I'm not done growing up by a long shot. There's so many things I'm still learning and figuring out, and handling the fear of living in a purposeless world is a very different thing than handling the fear of going to the doctor, or handling the fear of the dentist, or handling the fear of whatever else. It's a very different thing, and it is a profound thing that you're dealing with. And so,
Yeah,
I think.
And
go ahead. No, please.
Yeah, and I'm an older person. I'm not like a young adult coming to this. I'm like
Mhm.
69. So like I'm an older person. And so I've
You
had,
don't sound a day over 67.
thank you very much. You're funny. Can I say one thing, Forrest? I've got
Please.
I just love you. I've got a crush on
Oh,
you, I
thank you.
think. But
That's very
yeah, I
kind of
just
you.
love listening to you. So yeah, I do like your opinions on things, and it makes me feel kind of better when I listen to you guys, because I don't feel maybe as fearful because I see you people doing okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
and
seem to be
I-
fine. You seem to be more
That's the-
sure of yourself. That's for sure.
that is the biggest thing that these shows do is they provide some sense of community, and because like it's like these are not popular ideas by a lot, but I think honestly, I remember a couple of times you've been calling in, and every time I talk to you, including this time, you're incredibly sober and erudite and able to like really identify what you're feeling and why. You're clearly somebody who thinks a lot, and clearly somebody who's very in touch with your own mind and your own emotions. I think I may have said this to you before. In fact, I probably have. I think you're well on your way. And I think that like at this point in your life, like you can and should be able to do whatever the hell you want with your own mind. And if you just kind of start poking around on this stuff and exploring this stuff, I think you're going to find that it's a lot less. I shouldn't say less scary. The scary is a lot more fun than you thought it was. It's scary, but it's a cool scary.
All right.
It's horror movie scary. It's not being murdered scary. It's watching the murderer on the screen scary. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, Maureen,
I get it.
if I can give you a suggestion, there's actually a person on YouTube called Godless Granny. We've had her here on the line once before. She's actually in like your kind of situation of being in an older bracket, I guess, and you coming out of faith and everything like that. So I mean, you could probably relate a lot to her and her content. So if you just look up here on YouTube Godless Granny, I think that you'll really enjoy her content.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate it.
Calling.
It makes me feel better. Yeah. Well, thanks. And keep it up.
That's awesome.
I think you're doing
Thank
good.
you so much, Maureen.
Okay.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Maureen. I can't wait for the day that Maureen calls in and is like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm an atheist now. Fuck all this. We've talked to her a few times, and she's always so genuine and like really like just like asking seriously good questions. And like, I think it's a matter of I don't even think it's a matter of years. I think it's a matter of months, maybe weeks before she's just like, you know what though, for real, I can fucking do this shit. I think Maureen's a badass, and I don't think she gives herself enough credit.
I agree.
We got a lot of great calls. Lines are almost completely full. So feel free to keep calling in. I think it looks like we have one line open right now, but like we're going to keep moving through these. In the meantime, let's talk to, I believe it's Shauna or Shanna. I'm not sure. So please tell me how to pronounce your name. Calling in from Tiny Xylophones, wants to know how to deconstruct her belief in hell without deconstructing her belief in Christ, the risen Lord. Shauna, please tell me how to pronounce your name, and also, hi, you're on the line with Forrest and John.
Hey, it's Shauna.
Awesome, perfect.
Hey.
So really quick question. You're saying you want to deconstruct your belief in just hell, but not your belief in all of Christianity or belief in Jesus. I'm going to be very, very honest with you. Like, our goal in the end of the day is to help you deconstruct your belief in Jesus as well. But I would rather you take one brick out of this wall than tear down the whole wall in this moment and fail. So, like, I'm happy to talk about hell, but don't be surprised if we talk a little bit about Jesus as well while we're getting there. Is that okay with you?
Sounds fair enough.
Okay, cool. Well, then my first question is why? Why do you only want to stick with hell and not the whole thing?
Well, I don't think a loving God would send you to hell, would he?
I don't think so either.
You wouldn't think so, but there's also like, what's the criteria for getting into hell? or getting into heaven. Either one. Like, what exactly do you have to do in order to get sent there?
Well, that's the thing, and I'm questioning currently. I'm actually a universalist currently, so I think everyone is going to go to heaven eventually. But I believe in temporary hell.
Okay. So you don't believe in hell as like like that's where you get sent absolutely like for eternity. You think that there's only a short amount of time that you're in hell.
Yeah, like purgatory.
Okay. So,
Okay.
question: you hold this belief. I'm assuming you were raised in in some sort of Christian tradition.
No.
No. Okay. So, did you develop this belief on your own later on?
Yeah.
Okay. What led you to decide that this was a thing that you believed in? What's something that convinced you that this was real?
It's the ancient faith of my heritage. I'm Italian, so my whole family for 2,000 years has been Catholic. So why wouldn't I be?
Sure. But I mean, like, is that actually why you chose to believe this? Is like, well, I guess my parents and my parents and their parents and their parents did, so I might as well? Or did you have any like actual evidence for it or anything that was like compelling to you? Or was it just traditional to fear this?
No, well, my immediate family is not Catholic, but I'm saying my heritage is.
Sure. I understand. I'm just saying, like, your heritage being Italian certainly wouldn't have a lot to do with like the culture of Texas. Your heritage being Italian wouldn't be interested in cell phones and motor cars and all these other things. If you're talking about these 2,000 years of people believing in hell, there's a lot of things that you do that don't align with that. So why is this one something that you think just heritage alone is a good reason to buy into it?
Why would I betray my ancestors?
I'm
Who
trying to
gives
get
a
across
fuck
to you.
about your ancestors?
yeah. I'm trying to get across to you. You do all the time, forever. Like if you are, you're calling in with she/her pronouns. So like if you are a woman who is able to vote and drive and hold positions of power, I guarantee that's some shit that goes against what a lot of your ancestors would have thought and been okay with. And yet here you are doing those things and also believing in this nightmare that they've conjured up for you. Why worry about what your ancestors think about you? Why care about that?
I wouldn't say it's a nightmare. Have you heard of Saint Gregory of Nyssa or Saint Origen of Alexandria? Because they were both universalists from the early church. They are patristic fathers who believe basically the same thing I do. They don't believe in eternal hell.
That's great. There's people that believe in the thing. That doesn't really answer the question that I just asked you, though.
Yeah, but they're church fathers.
Who cares?
I mean, like,
yeah, I'm having trouble following it. I don't know if it's like my brain fog that's going on right now, but I'm having trouble following like why you even still believe like in hell, because it kind of seems like you're like, well, a loving God wouldn't send us there. And I agree, a loving God wouldn't. So it's either your God is omnibenevolent or all loving or whatever, or he's not. Mm-hmm. This seems to be like, a pretty clear-cut case. Which one do you think that it is? Do you think that your God is all loving? Then hell can't exist if you think that God is all loving. If you don't think that your God is all loving, then obviously hell can't exist. Which one is it?
I think an all loving God could add a temporary hell.
Okay. Why would an all loving God have a temporary hell? Sorry, you go ahead, Forrest.
No, that I was about to ask the same question. Like, if this God is all loving, there wouldn't be any hell of any kind or any punishment of any kind. They would just forgive you of whatever your sins and not need to hurt you in any way. You're describing a conditional and time a temporal love. You're not describing all love.
Does a child, when a child puts their hand on the stove, they're getting punished, right?
No, they're being hurt because they made a mistake by the stove, not by you. You don't, if your child makes a mistake, you don't go and put their hand on the stove to punish them. That's something very different. That's just abuse. So if you touch the metaphorical stove and make a mistake, then a loving God would protect you from that and make sure you are not hurt any further and soothe the burn and take care of you, not continue to torture you and burn you even for a little bit of time because you did something wrong. That's not what love is. That's not how love works. And what's so frustrating about me here, Shauna, is that like it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, this is just something you've decided to believe because somebody else did. And I don't understand why that's good enough for you. You don't hold many of the beliefs, most of the beliefs that 2,000 years of Italians have held. You just picked this one. And I get that religion is a cultural thing and that it has some cultural significance, but like, I don't understand why you're sitting here putting yourself through the ringer, choosing to believe in some sort of all-loving monster that loves you so much that it's willing to hurt you quite badly, and then being afraid of that, and then wanting to stop believing in it when you chose to believe in it. This is a very weird situation that you've put yourself into. It sounds like you're just tying yourself into knots.
Well, there's many great saints, such as Saint Catherine of Genoa, who didn't believe actually
Sure.
hell would be painful.
No.
She believed it would be
Shauna, I'm
painful,
asking
but would
you-
be so loving of God.
I'm asking you about your beliefs, not some saint. There's lots of saints that said lots of good and bad things.
I place my faith in the saints.
Okay. So if I could find a saint for you that says there is no hell at all, then you would believe that there is no hell now because this saint said so?
Yes, there are some saints that say things like that, but so yeah, if you could find a saint that says that'd be awesome.
Right. But I'm trying to show you that's a silly thing to do. You understand? Like I can't get past this. You don't have a good reason to believe this. I've asked you several times for why you believe, and you keep just saying it's because you don't want to betray your family, as if believing something different than your family is betraying them, which I don't think is reasonable in the first place. But like you keep saying that you're believing this because it is your cultural tradition of belief. You have chosen to believe in a thing. You have chosen your own rules for believing in that thing. And now you are afraid of something that you have chosen to believe in, and you are calling us to help you deconstruct the belief that you have chosen to put on yourself. Just stop believing it. Pretend that there is a saint that says that, and it will be as meaningful as if there wasn't, and as if there really was. If you're just going to say, I need somebody with some sort of fancy title to say it, I'll go get a fancy hat and tell you right now there's no hell and you'll be fine.
Okay, well, I think there are good reasons to believe in Catholicism.
Okay, let's talk about those. Why?
Are you aware of the miracles that have been done with the relics of saints?
I know of the claims.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you go ahead.
What relics? No, what? Sorry to laugh. What relics are we talking about here?
The skull of Saint Thomas Aquinas. There's been many miracles around that one.
How does that work exactly? I've never understood this whole relic thing. So like you hold the magical skull and you rub it a few times and then he grants your wish. Is it genie from? Is it like the genie rules here, or like what's going on?
Or is it a magic 8-ball situation where you have to like the skull tells you what's up?
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Oh,
How
yeah.
badass would it be to have a skull that's like a magic 8-ball and it's like, oh, is this person a troll? Most likely, yes. I mean, I kind of feel that's how I feel right now.
It's difficult to tell. And like the thing is, Shauna, like you're saying that there's these relics that do some magic things, but it's a mystery. And that's why we don't have any verifiable evidence of anything magical happening with these relics. We don't have any actual we have documentation where people are writing down like, hey, some magic happened. But when we put them in a lab, when we try to verify it, it doesn't work. Like, that's just how do you tell the difference, Shauna? How do you tell the difference between a relic that has magic powers that are mysterious and unverifiable and a relic that doesn't actually have magic powers?
I don't test God like that.
You don't test God as if, like, because in the Bible, God allows himself to be tested a lot, actually.
No, in the Bible it says, "Thou shalt not test the Lord your God."
Except for, like, when I think I believe it was Saul, that he's like, if God comes to him as like, hey, I want you to do XYZ thing, and Saul's like, I tell you what, I'm going to put this blanket on the ground tomorrow, make the blanket wet with morning dew, but not the ground around it. And then the next day he says, another test, now make the ground wet, but the blanket dry. And God does that too. There's several times in the Bible. Jesus Christ himself, when Jesus appears to the apostles after his resurrection, he comes amongst the apostles, and Thomas, St. Thomas, says, I don't believe you're really Jesus. I want to put my fingers in the holes in your hand and the holes in your side and the holes in your feet to feel that you're really God. And Jesus says, yes, come on. And he fingers Jesus a whole bunch and then says, you are my Lord and God. And then the next line in that chapter says that Jesus provided much more evidence and allowed himself to be tested and provided many more ways for the apostles to know. And now here you are, Shauna, 2,000 years later, reading the newest translation of the newest version of the newest interpretation of this particular Bible that you like, and choosing which parts of it you want to believe in based on how comfortable they are for you and how many of your ancestors believed in them. You don't care about the history of the church. You don't care about the atrocities of the church. You're just deciding to believe in a thing and looking for someone with authority to tell you that it's okay not to believe in it anymore, even though you're the only person who has allowed yourself to get into this belief in the first place. I don't understand why you're twisting yourself into so many knots in order to perpetuate a belief that you don't even want to have.
Okay, well, I want to allow you to go into the church because all of you know that the church has done many great things throughout history. First of all,
rape kids,
and also has done, raping kids and done the Crusades is another big
Those
part
are
of it.
great achievements for the Catholic Church.
God.
Sorry, I get nervous and I laugh.
On Reddit.
That's the kind of thing you hear on Reddit? No, it's literally a fucking thing that's been like cataloged across the world.
Was it a good thing? Like, because what tends to happen is that a priest will rape a child or two, and then rather than being punished in any way, they will just be moved to another parish. Do you think that's justice when that happens, Shauna?
No, I don't. But do you realize that Pope Francis is significantly more progressive than Joe Biden or any Democrat or even Bernie Sanders?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Does it matter? You're calling in because you believe in this thing because for 2,000 years people have believed in it. And now you're going to say, yeah, but fuck all that 2,000 years of the Crusades and of pedophilia and of stealing money from indigenous peoples and of forced conversion and of genocide. 2,000 years of absolute atrocities. Fuck it. Because right now, Pope Francis is a pretty progressive guy. Are you serious?
Well, the Crusades were defensive.
No, they weren't.
They were
defensive?
This
is the thing, dude. Yeah, this is bullshit. This is absolutely bullshit. If it's that's the kind of defense that we say that Israel is defending itself right now. That's the kind of defense that the Crusades were. Giving people absolution, saying that you get to go to heaven if you murder as many Muslims as possible, isn't fucking defense, dude. This is ridiculous. I don't think you're serious.
Are you? I wonder if you're operating off of the concept that the best kind of defense is a good offense, and like,
yeah,
I don't know. Like it's defense only because we're really good at the offense.
John, I think they would be speaking Arabic right now if they didn't have the Crusades, to be honest. So,
would that be a bad thing to be speaking Arabic?
Well, we'd all be Muslims, so.
Would that be a bad thing
No.
to be a Muslim?
Yes, if Islam is false, yes.
Oh,
What
okay.
makes
So
Islam
the
false?
issue is, no, actually, that's a better question than what I was going to say.
Islam is false because it's founded by a pedophile prophet.
Oh,
so you do like,
yes,
okay,
please.
sorry. No, tell me more about how you don't like pedophilia. It's a dramatic change in tone.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't like pedophilia.
Shauna. Okay, so then you could condemn when your church defends it.
Yes, of course we condemn that.
Right.
Okay.
except
Well,
they
hold on.
haven't
If you can,
for a long time.
yeah, they haven't. For one thing, they haven't. The Catholic. Let me give you a breakdown. The Catholic Church maintains $1 billion savings account to pay off victims of Catholic sexual abuse. That's one. Two. All over the world, Catholic parishes and Catholic churches and everything like that have been routinely put on blast and have been charged in the public for circulating pedophiles throughout the church. Only a few small outlier times have they ever actually dealt with those priests, kicked them out, and defrocked them. Otherwise, what they do is they hide them. They bring them back to the Vatican City, and they just put them up there. But if they don't get caught by the wider public, then they just get recirculated throughout the system so that they can offend more people. Okay, this has been shown to happen multiple times in the United States as well as other areas of the world. That's just talking about the Catholic organization over the last hundreds of years, right? Next, you could talk about the Bible. How old was Mary when God forcefully impregnated her? Do you know?
That's a good question.
14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that God should forcefully impregnate a 14-year-old child? Like, is that a good thing for you? Like, would you say that's a good thing?
It wasn't a sexual impregnation. You realize that?
I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me ask Forrest this question real quick. Forrest, is impregnation an inherently sexual act?
You know what? No, actually. You could do like IVF or something like that that's not strictly sexual. However, there is no circumstance where getting a 14-year-old pregnant is a good thing, I would say. I'd say that's pretty fucking wrong. And so, like, to John's point, what God did was statutory rape. And you can argue, well, the statute wasn't around at the time and it wasn't sexual, but it was still getting a 14-year-old girl pregnant. And it was a forced thing. It was coerced, because in the Bible, Mary says, all right, let God do whatever he wants. But that is still coercion, because there's a major power dynamic. It's the same reason why prison guards can't have sexual relationship with prisoners, even if the prisoners want them to, because there's a power dynamic which makes it inherently wrong. So God raped Mary, no matter how you slice it, and got a 14-year-old girl pregnant. Weird that you think that Muhammad being a pedophile is a problem when your church is full of them and your God is one of them.
God is not a pedophile. That's ridiculous.
Okay, so if you want to be technical, he's a hebephile in that particular instance, because hebephile would be that particular age range. But I really think that we're pulling. Now. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had to look it up because conservative dipshits always push back on that for whatever reason. But yeah, so hebephile would be technically what God is in that particular situation. But also in the Talmud, you have different regulations for when a father sells his child, his young daughter, into a marriage. That can happen when she's 8. And so, like, considering that girls can enter puberty and become viable for like impregnation as young as like 8 or so, that would mean that there was definitely pedophilia happening at that time that was sanctioned, or at least seemed to be sanctioned by God. I don't
That's
know.
all.
Forrest, what do
by the
you
way.
have to say?
That's the Muslim defense, by the way. As someone who has talked to several Muslims on these shows and argued about how it was pretty fucked up that Muhammad married a 6-year-old and had sex with her at 9, that is exactly what they say. Is that, well, if they're old enough to bleed, they're old enough to breed, which apparently God agrees with.
That makes me cringe hearing that.
It's horrific. You fucking said hebephile. I want to hear it from you. The point is, Shauna, like I don't think you're serious. I really don't at this point. It sounds like you're just throwing out a bunch of excuses. And what's frustrating about it to me is that, like, these are bad excuses for being a Catholic. They're bad excuses for defending the Catholic Church. They're bad excuses for defending the Catholic Church's history, thousands of years of history of horrific behavior. And not only that, it is still just something that you just decided to believe in for no good reason at all. And now we're calling us to complain and ask us how to help you not believe in it anymore. I think you're wasting your own time, and you're certainly wasting ours. So I think I'm going to move on from this call unless, John, you have anything else.
Nope.
Yeah. Shauna, you chose to believe this. Choose to stop believing it if you don't want to. That's the advice that I would give you. Goodbye now. Please stop practicing Catholicism because it fucking sucks. Weird call.
I totally agree. I fucking hate Catholicism. Forrest, have you seen, there's a movie called Spotlight. Have you seen Spotlight?
No, I haven't.
It's a really good movie. It's got a lot of great people in it. That it's a dramatization of the Spotlight group from the Boston Globe. They're the ones that initially broke the Catholic sexual abuse scandal in the early 2000s. And it started this sort of cascade of like investigations and like everything like that. It's really horrible. Like, well, watching it, it's really great. Like, look at like what actually happened, but like figuring out like everything that they went through is just crazy. I suggest everybody watch it. I think it's on Netflix for people that's interested in that kind of thing.
While you were saying that, fucking Grimbeard in the chat, god damn it, if you're sexually attracted to spooky things, are you a heebie-jeebie file? That's really good. That's really, really good. Yeah,
that'll be in Webster's dictionary next year.
That's such a great fucking I can't stop thinking of it. So I was thinking about Catholicism actually earlier today, and like something just like that stuck out to me, and I can't get off this train, and I need to share it with somebody. And since we just got off the cult show, it's freaking, I just want to share it with somebody. That, like, holy water, right? So you have holy water, it's blessed by whatever, and it is now, this is what holy water is all about. And you can do stuff like bless people. I don't know. Here's a question for you. Just go down this road with me, right? If I had like a cup of holy water and a cup of regular water, and let's say actual cup, like 8 ounces. Okay, I have 8 ounces of holy water and I have 8 ounces of regular water. If I pour the regular water into the holy water, is it still holy water? I know you don't believe this, but just I'm asking you to play with this with me for a second. Would it make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't, because so like you got the water molecules that have been blessed by a man of God mixing with the other ones. The ones that have been blessed are mixed in, so it's just sort of a diluted God,
that's exactly the thing.
Thing.
I need to know, can you dilute holy water to the point where it's no longer effective? And if so, where is that point? Or is holy water like homeopathy, where like you can dilute it forever and it's still effective, or even maybe more effective? Is there a point where that happens? And also, if any of that is or isn't true, it begs the question about, okay, what is actually the holy thing? Is it the molecules themselves, right? If the molecules are what are being blessed and those are the holy things, then can you distill holy water? Can you evaporate and then condense holy water again and make it still be holy water? Or does the physical change affect the magical properties of the holy water? Or is it the incidentals, as Catholics say about, like, with transubstantiation, whenever they eat the paste bread and drink the wine, it turns into the body and the blood of Jesus, and it's not the matter, the substance of the bread stays the same, but it's the incidentals. The incidentals are the molecules, but the actual substance of the bread changes into the blood or the body of Christ or whatever like that. So like, even though it is still technically bread, it is also literally the body of Christ. Is it like that with the holy water where the molecules aren't actually affected? It's just some ethereal thing about the molecules. And if so, then the dilution thing raises further questions. If it can be diluted infinitely, and if condensation and evaporation don't affect it, then that would also imply that like every bit of holy water that's ever been holy water is still around. It's just in the water cycle, moving about, right? And like if it can be diluted and expanded, right? If I pour the 1 cup in and now I have 2 cups of holy water, then that would mean that every bit of water on earth is at this point holy water. It must have, because it's been diluted at some point, mixed, integrated. The biogeochemical cycles have moved it around. The water cycle has moved it around, which means every time it rains, the place is bathed, wherever that is, in holy water. And that is why there aren't vampires anymore, because after so long, we have now got to the point where literally every thunderstorm is cleansing that area. And like that, you know what I'm saying? And like, I was thinking about that. I couldn't let go of this thought. And I want to play with this so much more, but I don't think we're going to have a Catholic that's serious that calls in and plays with it with me. But like, I can't.
I was gonna say, Forrest, like I understand you walking out that thought, and I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to walk down, but I think that we're not really gauging the amount of magic that's going into it. Like, how does magic operate? It's magic. We don't gotta explain shit, So I mean, I think that it's just, magical water stays magic, and so therefore all water is holy water. As long as you flush enough holy water down the drain, I guess.
Flushing is another great question. What if I had 1 cup of holy water and I added like 1 cup of some other thing, like some other liquid, like alcohol, right? Do different solutes or different things, can holy water be a part? Can I make a holy water martini, right? Can I do scotch and water, but the water is holy? And is it still holy water at that point? And if so, then everything that I drink has holy water in it, and everything that I piss is holy water. There's holy water, like everything is holy water. Golden showers are blessings. And there's so much there. You know what I'm saying?
Come, my child. I must bless you.
but don't come before I do. Like, and that's it. There's a whole thing. Like that's. It's just there's so many questions. I don't know, man. I can't let go of this thought, and I have questions about it. Because if you can solve vampirism with by busting a hot waz on Dracula, like the fucking man, I'm into that idea. We got calls. Oh man, we still got lines open. We were doing a show. We got. Let's talk to Mark. Calling in from my issues. I don't know why you're calling about mine. Pronouns he, him, who's a theist who says he has the Bible has evidence for God in its stories. That's what it says here. Let's talk about it. Mark, you are on the line with Forrest and John. How are you doing today?
There we go. Can you hear me all today?
I can hear you just fine.
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, great.
Are you beatboxing or just shuffling your phone around?
Yeah, sorry. Should I get started?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Bible has evidence for God in its stories. So you're talking about the God of the Bible. Is the whole Bible? Are you talking about, or just part of it?
Yeah, sorry. I'm a little nervous. You'll have to excuse me. I'm a big fan of the show, by the way.
All right, on. Thank you very much for calling.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about the God of the Bible. What stories provide evidence for God?
So I would say the biggest example would be Cain and Abel. Have you read Cain and Abel?
Yes.
How is that evidence of anything?
Well, that's an eternal archetype of every brotherly relationship, is it not?
No, I don't want to kill my brother.
Yeah, dude, that's like that is actually literally word for word the thing that Jordan Peterson says, and it's fucking frustrating. No, it is not the parable of all brothers. That doesn't make any fucking sense. And also that's not evidence
It's
of
the
a
parable
god.
of envy. It's envy. It's hatred of your brother.
There are plenty of other parables of envy available, and none of them provide evidence of any other gods.
Just, Mark, answer this real quick. Do you watch a lot of Jordan Peterson's content?
No.
Oh, that's good.
Okay. All right. So let's just say that this is an archetypal figure. These two brothers, envy and all this other shit. How does this get to a historical thing? Why can't this just be some made up bullshit story that's meant to represent something like an experience that somebody had that doesn't necessarily translate into, you know, the Cain and Abel story, but it's like, oh, I want to represent this thing. So, you know, here's this bullshit story I made up in order to explain like this concept. How does this translate at all to like anything like historical evidence or anything like that? Because like you specifically say that the Bible has evidence for God in its stories. How is this evidence of God?
Yeah, so those are stories. They're not some sort of historical history book. You realize that, right? They're just like parables. They're mysteries that we can meditate on. They're not actually things that happen, though. But they happen every day to us eternally.
Buddhism has all sorts of koans and stories and stuff that you're supposed to meditate on that teach you big lessons and stuff. Doesn't mean that Siddhartha was actually any kind of divine guy. Doesn't tell you anything about the supernatural. Doesn't tell you anything about the nature of reality. Just neat stuff to think about the human condition. There are plenty of parables and fables and things out there that talk about envy and talk about greed and talk about pride and talk about all sorts of other things that we can meditate on and think about. Doesn't do anything to tell us that this God is real or that any God is real. So we'll ask again, going back to the beginning, what stories in the Bible provide evidence for God?
Genesis 1.
Okay. So that's not evidence. That's just saying a thing. So how can we test or verify that Genesis 1 is true? Genesis 1 is the claim, not the evidence. So what evidence do we have that Genesis 1 is true?
Well, I'm not an astrophysicist, but I've heard that Genesis actually lines up very well with the Big Bang account.
It super doesn't. We can go over it together.
What about Genesis? Sorry, if I was just going to ask real quick, what about Genesis in particular lines up with the Big Bang hypothesis?
The chaos. The chaos before the formation of order.
It doesn't say anything about chaos. It says that there was void water.
Yeah, where's the chaos in Genesis?
Well, that's tohu and bohu in Hebrew, which means chaos.
Okay.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Genesis 1. No, I said if you have a different thing, I just want to like specify that the chaos he's talking about in Genesis 1 verse 2, it says the earth was without form and void. That's the chaos. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. That sounds like chaos. And the last line of that same verse is the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Water was not around during the Big Bang. Water is made of hydrogen and oxygen. Neither of those things existed at the Big Bang or before the Big Bang. It would have taken a long time after the Big Bang to get to that. So this does not align with the Big Bang. And the rest of Genesis 1 also doesn't align with the Big Bang. Like, for example, where God makes grass and trees and all the things. He makes all the plants here. And that is on the third day. And then on the fourth day, God makes the sun. So plants didn't exist on Earth before the sun did, right? We can agree on that?
No.
No. Okay. How did plants evolve before the sun came about?
maybe there is another star.
Okay. Can you tell me of any other stars which are close enough to allow for photosynthesis in plants here on Earth and allowing plants to grow to the point where you would be able to sustain animal life?
Well, it would have died already. It would have died before our star was created.
Okay, so you have a star that is close enough to allow for photosynthetic life on this planet, but not close enough to affect the gravity that we see holding our solar system together, the gravity from our star.
And it's already dead. It's been dead since the beginning of since the Big Bang.
It's been dead since the Big Bang. The Big Bang would have been before our planet. So if it's been dead before the Big Bang, then our planet and the plants on it wouldn't have been here either. Can you explain to me what you think the Big Bang is, Mark?
The singularity.
Right.
What?
And you understand that the singularity, I'm fine. I can roll with that. You understand, Mark, that the singularity would not allow for like different stars and planets to exist. They would all be part of the singularity, right?
That.
What?
That.
Right. So what you just said contradicted everything else you've just said.
Nothing.
You're just saying words now.
Are you going to have a meaningful conversation, or are you just going to be a dick?
Well, yeah. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I'm reading chat. I'm getting distracted. I'm gonna put away the chat.
Don't read chat. If you're here to read chat, then get off the phone and read chat. But if you're here to talk to us, talk to us.
Right. Well then. So I think God loves you guys.
I don't give a fuck what God loves.
I disagree strongly, considering the world that it's made. If it's real, it sucks ass and it's not a loving creature. But that's also not what we're talking about. You said that the Big Bang is the singularity. And then you also said that before the Big Bang, there was a star that was so close to our Earth that it allowed for photosynthetic life to form, but then also not so close to the Earth so as not to disrupt the gravity of our solar system, which doesn't make any fucking sense. And that also that star died without showing any evidence of it being here in the first place before the Earth was formed, when it was doing the things you're claiming it was doing. That doesn't make any sense, Mark.
I told you I'm not an astrophysicist, but would you like to talk about the Gospels? Because I think
No, you said this was your evidence for God. I asked you what story provides evidence for God, and you said Genesis because it aligns with the Big Bang. And you have repeatedly shown that that isn't true. You said that Genesis 1 is the Big Bang, which says that there was water before there was anything in the universe, which doesn't make any sense. And says that there were plants before there was the sun, which doesn't make any sense. Which also says that there were animals after plants, which also isn't true. So, no, this doesn't make any sense. Your beliefs don't make any sense. Your claims that you're laying out here don't work. You don't have to be an astrophysicist to say that it doesn't make any sense, Mark, to say that there was another star that helped Earth survive before the Earth existed. How would that work?
I don't know.
Yeah, neither do I, because it's nonsense.
Right.
Go ahead,
Mark,
John. I'm sorry, I've been talking this whole time.
No, you're fine. If I get that you're not like an astrophysicist or a cosmologist or anything like that, but why would you bring up something so technical to two people that are very technical about this particular claim? Why would you bring that up as evidence for your position? Like, if you can't actually support it with like evidence, and you're just going to sit there and be like, oh, well, obviously Big Bang matches Genesis, and then not actually expound upon that and support it with evidence. Why would you even do that?
I didn't think you guys were going to call me on it that well. I'll be honest. You got me in that one.
That's shitty. That's shitty. I'm sorry. That fucking.
Do you rely on that in your conversations with people there, Mark? Like, do you rely on people just being like, "Oh shit, yeah, it totally matches. Wow, what the fuck?" and not like actually try to question you and try to figure out like how you support your claims? Like, do you rely on people's ignorance in a conversation?
No, I'll admit I was ignorant on that one because I'm not an natural physicist, but I do have plenty of other arguments based on the Bible.
Mark, I'm sorry, Mark. I just really I'm really sick of you bullshitting me here. You don't have to be an astrophysicist to understand that your claim is that before the universe started, there was a different star providing light to the Earth. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Before the Earth was created,
I was just guessing.
Earth was doing things. Yeah, okay, well then fucking think about it before you, like, that's what sucks, dude. It's really shitty for you to say that you called into this show not expecting us to call you out on stuff. That just means you haven't thought about any of this stuff and you called us to use us the way you should be using Google. Like, that fucking blows, dude. You say you're a fan of the show, and yet you didn't expect us to read into the things you were saying?
I never heard these arguments on the show.
Oh, man. This is...
Yeah, Mark, I don't expect everybody to, like, you know, watch every single minute of every single show on here, but this is something that we talk about regularly, especially, like, on Skeptalk, but also the Sunday show, like, both of them, all the time. So, like, I get it if you're not up to date on what the counter arguments are to this very basic ass apologetics, but if you're gonna, I would just suggest, like, maybe you're more hip on the Gospels, which is kind of seems like what you want to pivot to next. But if you're gonna bring up something like this that's very technical and scientific to an engineer and a scientist, maybe you should, like, do some, like, background checking on, like, the apologetics and the counter arguments against those apologetics, so that you can have a meaningful conversation instead of, you know, not expecting us to call you on your bullshit when this is literally what we do on this channel. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, or just, no. I interrupted you. I apologize. I was just adding, like, or just literally think about it. You don't have to go learn the physics of this stuff. No part of this discussion has required you to understand how planets form or where stars come from or any of this shit. Just literally, if you're gonna make the claim Genesis 1 is demonstrating the Big Bang, you should have fucking read Genesis 1 first. It's a short chapter. And if you had read it, you would have been able to think about it and understand that your position is untenable. Like, you didn't think about this at all before you called us, and then you're going to say that you didn't expect us to think about it for you. I don't know, man. That just rubs me every sort of wrong way.
Anyway, talk about the Gospels.
I'll let you do one more, because it's only been 14 minutes, and we've got plenty of other calls waiting, but, like, I'm interested in one more. Do you want, John? Do you think one more? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, John. You muted bastard. How dare you?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I had to blow my nose, so I was trying to be respectful. Yeah, I'm totally up for a gospel talk. Maybe you're better at the Gospels. Let's try the Gospels.
Yeah. Okay. So I think if you read all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you will see how reliable Jesus Christ is as a person.
Okay,
all right, hold on. I'm going to stop you. Yeah, you're not fucking serious with this, because my first question is going to be, how do we know that the Gospels are actually historically reliable? Because you're not going to find critical scholars that agree with you on that particular point. You're just going to find apologists that agree with you on that point. So, like, tell me, how do you know that the Gospels are historically reliable as opposed to just made up bullshit?
Well, I think the Gospels don't ever claim to be historical documents.
I'm sorry, if you're going to claim what you claimed just a second ago, as far as, like, proving whatever you called into this show to prove, I feel like it needs to like correspond to history, right? Like the Gospels, if they're telling a true account of Jesus, they have to correspond to actual history, correct?
No, absolutely not. I'm not a fundamentalist.
You don't have to be a fundamentalist to think that the Gospels are historical. I don't, Forrest, I'd take it back. I don't think this guy's serious.
The thing that gets me is that
Okay.
none of the Gospels, if I remember correctly, none of the Gospels were written by eyewitnesses at all. Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. I don't think they knew Jesus, if I remember correctly. Mark, in my notes here on this page, I wrote that Mark was written around 66 AD, Matthew and Luke were written around 85 AD, and John was written around 100 AD, all in a time when people lived to be 40. And so these are folktales. And if you're going to seriously say with the straight fucking face that they show the consistency of Jesus when the Jesus character is very different in each of them. I think it's I can't remember off the top of my head exactly, but I believe it's in Matthew that he's a fucking megalomaniac, sets a tree on fire for not having fruit for him and shit. And then you have the other one where he's flipping tables and beating the hell out of people with a whip. There's whole fucking verses about him fashioning a whip. And then you have John, where he's just this angel, this lamb, that's just this super sweet guy that's never hurt a fly and would never raise a hand to anybody. It didn't even speak in a stern voice for his entire fucking life. And you're going to say this is consistency? And then also the fact that each of the gospel stories has a completely different account of the resurrection. Was there an angel at the tomb, or were there several angels, or were there no angels? Were the angels sitting on the rock, or were they standing by the people, or did they appear before the people? Was the body in the tomb when they got there, or did it levitate out of the tomb in front of them, or was it never there in the first place? Was the rock there and then moved, or was there an earthquake that moved the rock, or did Jesus move the rock, or was the rock already moved? All of these are different things across the different gospels. And if you're going to claim any kind of consistency in them, you're going to be fucking sorely mistaken and very embarrassed when you actually read the damn things. I don't think, Mark, that you've read your Bible. And I think that you're just repeating apologetics bullshit that you've heard without thinking about it first. And that sucks.
You're making a lot of assumptions, sir. I am not a fundamentalist, so I would not assume that the Gospels need to be called consistent.
Your claim was that they are consistent, Mark.
I said they're proof of God.
No.
How are they proof of God?
We asked you what evidence there was in the Gospels, and the thing you said with your mouth was that if you look at Jesus across Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that he is consistent, and he isn't.
His character is consistent. His character is consistent. Not whether or not he moved the rock.
No. Okay. So here's some inconsistent character. No, hold on. There's inconsistent character attributes of Jesus in the gospel. So in Luke, the entire point of the Lazarus account is a parable, and that's to show that no amount of magical miracle things that Jesus could do would convince people. So it's basically showing, it's pointless to do these miracles. But then you get to John, and John's Jesus does the Lazarus resurrection, and many people are convinced directly. And Jesus goes through and he does different miracles in order to convince people. So if you're talking about the character of Jesus, he's very inconsistent. Another way that he's inconsistent is that in Mark, there's this one town that Jesus is going to. I got brain fog, so I don't know exactly where it is in Mark, but in Mark, he's going to a town, and there he can, Mark says, I cannot do any miracles here. That's what Jesus says. But then as you progress in the Gospels, you see this this point where Jesus is turning on that one particular story that's in the three synoptics, where eventually in Luke, it gets to the point where he's like, I chose not to do any miracles there. He chooses not to do any miracles because they didn't have enough faith or some kind of shit like that. So, there's inconsistent character attributes of Jesus throughout all four of the accepted gospels that are part of the canon. And then if you go outside of the canon to these other gospels that exist out there, it's even wilder as far as the inconsistencies with Jesus.
Regardless, we can always know that he's a loving God.
Oh my God! Are we
Except
just going
for
to
the
pivot
time
from
when
one
he
shitty
isn't.
argument to another?
Yeah, except for the time when he said that I
Well,
come
we
not
can
to
know
bring
the
peace but a
important things.
sword. I come not to bring peace but a sword, and the time when he said I come to set brother against brother, and the time that he said no one loves me if they don't hate their parents first, and the time that he said that not a jot or
He's
tittle of
right.
the Old Testament law, the Old Testament law, which is all about genocide and murder and insanity. He said not a jot or tittle of that law
Oh,
shall
come
change until all things
on.
come to pass. Yeah. Oh, come on. The things
Come
he
on.
said. Yes, I am coming on, sir, to tell you that Jesus said shit that you don't like.
I love all of it.
Oh, you love all
What?
of it. Okay. Yeah, dude, you're not fucking
You-
serious. You're just saying whatever thing makes you feel more comfortable. And every time we demonstrate that what you're saying doesn't make any fucking sense, you come up with another excuse or you pivot to another talking point. Like, even if, like, genuinely,
Yep.
seriously grapple with just some fucking reality for a second. Even if each of the Gospels perfectly describe the exact same character, that wouldn't change anything. All 3 books of the Lord of the Rings describe the same Gandalf, and Gandalf isn't fucking real, right? So just because you have a consistent character, which you don't, but even if you did, that wouldn't prove anything. You would have to demonstrate this guy actually existed. Then you'd have
Right.
to demonstrate that he was actually the son of a god. You'd have to demonstrate there is a god for him to be the son of. You'd have to demonstrate that he actually walked on water. You have to demonstrate that he actually healed the sick. You have to demonstrate that he actually healed the blind. You have to demonstrate that he actually cured a leper. You have to demonstrate all of these things because they're all different claims. And you haven't done any of that. All you've said is these 4 deeply inconsistent books are kind of consistent in one way that I like, and therefore I know the dude that created the universe. That's an insane claim to make, Mark.
No, it's not.
That
you got me
entire
there.
thing that Forrest gave you, and you're just like, no, it's not.
Nuh-uh,
and that's it.
though.
Like that.
But have you considered nuh-uh? Yeah, Mark, you're not serious, dude. I think you're wasting our time, and I think you're just fucking around, especially considering the fact that where you claim you're calling in from and where your IP address is situated are different places. I figured it was just a VPN, but now I think you're just fucking around. We're going to move on. I hope that somebody learned something from this because I don't think you did. Have an awesome rest of your day, Mark. Maybe read your Bible next time before you call.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people need to take away from that is that, don't call in to any of the shows here and just have like these really piss poor sort of arguments that are you haven't really thought through. At least think them through, like you don't have to be a specialist, but you do have to at least think them through, I would think.
I honestly, and like the thing is, like I agree entirely with what you're saying, but I do want to also clarify, like when we talk about thinking things through, a lot of times people don't understand what we mean by that because you and I, John, we literally deal with this shit for a living. We're professional arguers on the internet, and there's a big difference between somebody who is willing to actually engage in real debate and someone who argues professionally. Sometimes those are the same person, but not always. And as much as I think you and I operate in good faith, and we really do try to be genuine and stuff, it can't be expected that every single caller is going to sit down and put the same level of thought, especially about this, as you and I have to on a daily basis. But if you can't, like, just be fucking honest about that, then. And if somebody if you say something that doesn't make any fucking sense, and it's demonstrated to you that doesn't make any fucking sense, at least have the spine to say, okay, you know what, that sucked. I don't know if I'm convinced that I'm wrong yet, but I can see how that didn't work. I'm going to go think about it further. Can I try something else instead? That's totally acceptable. If Mark had said, you know what, I admit the Genesis story doesn't fucking work. It doesn't make any logical sense. I don't know how it happened, but I still think it might have. I'd like to move on. I would have been so fine with that. Instead of just saying, I don't know, I'm just guessing. Can we talk about gospel now? Like, no. What's the point? You're not getting anywhere. I just don't want anybody to
I
be
totally
intimidated
agree.
and think they have to be like some fucking expert in some area before they call us. That's not at all what I would ever want anybody to be. Just, you have to be fucking honest. I don't know, man. And not arrogant as shit and say that fucking, you know, the guy who made the universe because some things in a book sound like a nice dude sometimes. Ugh. We got several other calls left. And it looks like actually the lines are full at this moment. So we'll try to get through a couple and see if we can open somebody back up. Do you see that? Do you have anybody in particular that you like? Because I'm looking at line number 6 and line number 5.
Yeah, either one of those is good for me.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Let's
I'll leave that
talk
up to you.
Let's talk to Zeno. He's been on the line for about an hour waiting, so let's get him in here. We got Zeno, pronouns he, him, calling in all the way from South Korea to talk to us about the evidence that he has from God, or for God, pardon me. Zeno, you are on the line with Forrest and John. How are you doing today?
Hey, Forrest, how's it going?
Never had a bad day, man.
Do you remember our last call?
No. I'm sorry. I do
Okay,
at least
good,
one of
good.
these shows a week.
Okay, so I kind of left like a dickhead, but I do want to tell you, I want to have a serious conversation about this. So I just want to preface it with that. Yeah.
Sure. I appreciate that. I don't remember our last call at all, but I forgive you for whatever it was. I don't know what happened. And we got John here too.
Yeah,
I'm excited to
so
hear what John has to say about whatever you're saying.
My argument was, I believe God is a creator. So we talked about the simulation. How can we prove life is a simulation or not a simulation? Is it coming back to you now? I said something about you can't prove dreams, you can't prove colors. You remember now?
I've heard all those arguments before.
Okay.
It does not ring any bells. We can't prove colors.
Okay.
Yeah, we can. And we can't prove dreams. Yeah, we can.
Why do you think you can definitively prove colors?
Because colors are defined by the wavelength of light that they represent. So if it's this many nanometers to that many nanometers, we call it red. I can't prove that our perception of that color is the same, but I can prove that it's going to have the same effects. We're going to call it the same thing. It's going to have the same psychological effects. We're going to use it in the same kind of marketing for that reason. I can prove all sorts of things about the color, and I can prove the wavelength of the color, and I can use that color to do science by spectroscopy and learning about the universe around me. I can use that color for light physics. I can use that color to understand prisms better and understand and like also I can do so many things with that color because I know what a color is, and I can prove that that color is real. I can't prove that you see red the same way I see red, but I can prove what red is, and I can prove what red does.
So you basically think you can know something. Like I don't think
Is what I
you
just
can
said.
definitively know. But you think because you see it and you identify with it, that means you absolutely know it? Is that what you're saying?
Let me. Is that what I just said at all?
Yeah, it sounds to me like you said because I identify with it and I can study it with my eyes. You're taking on face value what you see.
Well, that's not what I said. So I will repeat it then. I will repeat it because clearly you misunderstood. I did not say that at all. Science is not in the business of proof. Science is in the business of evidence. There is absolutely nothing that I can know absolutely 100% for sure, but I can say that there is enough strong evidence that it would be absurd for me to believe this thing isn't true. We never accept a hypothesis. We fail to reject a hypothesis. And so far, I have nothing that allows me to reject the evidence that I have that visible light exists within a certain nanometer spectrum. Each individual color has its own subset of that spectrum, and colors behave in ways that I can predict and test and measure, and that colors have different psychological effects on people, and that's why they're used in marketing and stuff all the time, and in art all the time, color theory all the time. There's a lot that we can know about light as far as we can know anything.
Okay, so if you're a brain in a vat, that could be wrong, right?
Are you going to act? I will answer that question, but first I want to ask you, are you actually hinging any argument on that, or are you using that to try to find some absurdity in my position?
Yes, I am. I'm hinging a lot
Okay.
of arguments on that. Yes.
Okay, that would be an unfalsifiable claim. It doesn't matter, is my answer in that case.
What about your co-host?
John,
If we're a brain
John,
in
do
the
you
vat,
have any? Yeah.
I hate hard solipsism. I hate it with a visceral, like, gut reaction. It doesn't matter if we're a brain in a vat or not. This is the reality that we're presented with, and we're all, at least as far as we could tell, sharing in that reality. We can measure like the wavelength of light, and we can determine at what point that wavelength of light is reflecting off of something, and that gives us a color. Like, I don't understand the point in this line of question.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and get into it then. So I understand you hate hard solipsism. I hate hard solipsism as well, but it is something you have to grapple with. It is something philosophers have contemplated for many years.
Good for them. I don't give a
wait. If I can, just finish my thought. I understand your hate for it because I hate it as well. But because we can't prove that we're not programmed, right? And we can't prove we're a brain in the vat, we have to be skeptical about what we perceive as truth. Would you agree with that?
No.
No. Okay. So I'll just continue and tell you how I got to God from this.
So would you like you? So you don't actually want to talk about that, because I don't agree with that, and I can tell you definitively why. But it seems like you just want to move on to the next thing.
Well, do you want me to move on? Because I know we have limited time. So
I don't agree with that. So first of all,
why?
I don't care what philosophers have been arguing about for a long time. I'm a biologist, not a philosopher. I care about what farts are made of, not what they smell like. So for me, when we talk about like, you know, we don't know that we're not a brain in a vat, therefore we have to doubt everything. I agree that we should remain skeptical of what we think things are. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But that's what science is for. As I said a minute ago, you never accept a hypothesis. You fail to reject a hypothesis. You only move forward with an idea, and you can no longer prove that it is wrong. You're gonna have to let me finish. You only move forward with an idea when you fail to prove yourself wrong. And when new evidence comes along, you change your mind. Because we are in this area where we can only take in information in so many different ways, we should be skeptical of the information that we take in. And that is the whole point of understanding naive realism. That is why so much of science is translating things that we cannot perceive with our five senses into a language that we can perceive with our five senses. That's what we do. Now, you're saying that this is because you can't prove that you're not a brain in a vat. And I say that is as ridiculous as saying it's because any other unfalsifiable claim. You don't buy into any other unfalsifiable claim, or you do buy into the possibility of all of them, which would be even more ridiculous. And you're just picking and choosing ones that are comfortable for you, that make sense for you, and saying that this is the reason why somehow or another you're going to get to God. And I don't understand why you're putting in all that extra legwork. It is not worth your or my or anybody else's time.
It's worth a lot of famous philosophers' time, or they would not try to come to the philosophies that they came to. This is not a scientific question. This is a philosophical question.
Yes, it is.
Do you
Whether
think,
or not a God exists is a scientific question, yes.
No. Do you think science is able to truly measure what is actually true? Like 100% truth. You think science is a good tool for that? Science could only study the world around us.
I'm gonna have to.
I think the point of science. I think the point of science is to be able to describe reality as accurately as we can, right, and to remove as much of our own bias, like, from our conclusions. Like, that's the goal of science. So I would think that if there was any way in order for us to know the truth of reality, science would be the best bet that we have.
Okay, and let's move forward with that. Science is, well, we didn't all come to an agreement and say, well, we agree with what the science says. Science contradicts other science, right? There's scientists that also hold a belief that is different from another science. So I understand what you're saying. We're doing our best to understand the natural world, but that's why we introduce philosophy. We have to eventually come together and say, when do we talk about all the things science can't study? So that's why philosophy was introduced, to study that fundamental
what can't
nature of
science
reality.
study? What can you tell me what science cannot study?
Yeah, sure. Can you give? I'm going to answer that by asking you the definition of philosophy.
Oh my god! Why can't you just answer the fucking question?
Okay, sure. Science can't study the philosophy of nature.
What does that even mean?
The philosophy of nature.
The philosophy of nature is about the fundamental, the most fundamental thing about reality, right? That's the most
Why
fundamental.
wouldn't science be able to analyze reality?
Also, why is philosophy the most fundamental thing about reality?
No, it's able to analyze what you see in reality. Philosophy goes outside of what you can actually see. It tries to answer philosophy isn't what you know. Science is what you know. Philosophy isn't what you know. It's what you don't know. So science,
I agree with that.
With
that makes sense. Yeah, science and philosophy is the shit you don't know.
If we're trying to have an honest conversation, we have to acknowledge these things, right?
No, this is totally useless to me.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, in order to have this conversation, I feel like I need to huff way more of Jordan Peterson's farts, like out of a champagne.
What's frustrating to me? What's frustrating to me, Zeno, is that like you're sitting here saying that like that science contradicts itself all the time, and there's these different scientists who believe different things, as if philosophers fucking don't. Like that's the thing, that like when we talk about disagreements in science, yeah, there's plenty of them. There's some people that look at this particular reconstruction and they're like, actually, I think this bone might also, this muscle attachment shaped in such a way that it might have used this way. And then there's other ones like, actually, the muscle attachment isn't that way, but there's this other muscle attachment here, and that I think it might have actually been this way. And so I think maybe this thing swam in this direction, and this one's like, no, I think it swam that. Little disagreements about like how and why things happened, and like in what order things happened, and what the facts mean when we put them in this order versus that order. Disagreements about shit like that. Whereas with philosophy, it's disagreements about like, what is moral? What is truth? Do we live in a world? Do we like, and I'm not disparaging philosophy just for the fun of doing it. I think philosophy is great. I think philosophers are a lot of fun. I have some friends that are philosophers. I took some philosophy classes. It's radical. It's a great thing to do. But to sit here and say that it is a pathway to truth that is in any way more reliable or more useful than the scientific method is absurd. And to sit here and pretend that philosophy, this natural philosophy of the things you don't know, is a way that's going to get you to understand things that science can't know is just fucking dumb.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your actual argument for God, because this isn't going anywhere. It's been 12 minutes.
Okay, well, that's why I wanted to call you about it, to perhaps have a better conversation than the fucking Bible, which is bullshit, and you'd rather talk to these motherfuckers. So that's kind of strange how you're like, oh, this isn't a cool call, but you talk to fucking people who believe in Jesus Christ for like 30 minutes.
I don't think it's a cool call for you to sit here and say that you can think your way into understanding the universe better than we can measure our way into understanding.
So at least let me get my position out. At least let me explain it.
It's been 12 minutes. Just go ahead. What's your position?
Zeno, we would love to, Zeno, we would love to hear your argument. But if you have to present a 37-page dissertation for it, this is not the venue for that.
Okay, all right. Well, it's hard to move forward with you guys because it's like every time I start talking, you guys give me a fucking sermon. But
because you say something ridiculous and we have to explain our position. Just tell us why you believe in God.
Well, everything you say is ridiculous, Forrest, but that's why we're having a conversation.
Quit bitching. Just tell us why you believe in God.
Okay. Number one, we're not able to determine 100% truth with our eyes. That's the position
Does that make you believe in a God?
Yes, I'm trying to get there. So
I'm asking you a question. You just said we can't determine anything with 100% certainty. Is that why you believe in God? Okay.
Yes, but I'm trying
Why
to
don't
actually
you
break. I'm trying to break it down. I'm trying to break it down. If you just give me a chance.
Why don't you believe in?
So-
Why don't you believe in anything else based on that?
I believe in a lot of things. God is just one of them.
I'm asking you, why don't you believe in any other supernatural claims based on the fact that you can't know anything with certainty?
Well, when you have a belief isn't what you know, right? A belief is a belief, and what you know is what you know. I don't think you can know everything. So I have belief.
It didn't answer my question.
I have a belief that a creator exists because I'm a reductionist.
That doesn't answer my question.
I break things down. I reduce it to theory or logic, set theory or logic. I break it down like engineering, right?
That still doesn't
We're
answer my
able to
question.
reduce complex parts.
Oh.
We're able to reduce.
I don't understand how any of this
understand.
relates to engineering, but
Yeah, no, Zeno,
okay.
I'm
So
sorry.
how does
Can you please, just really quickly, Zeno, what question did I ask you?
Well, your co-host started talking and there was a delay. I heard what you said. You were asking me about.
I asked you a question, and then you went on this diatribe about how you break things down. You're a reductionist. You break things down like engineering. What question did I ask you before you started talking about all that? What was the question I asked you?
You were talking about God, right?
What question did I ask you?
How do you get to God?
What question did I ask
you? How do you get to God?
No, that is not what I asked you.
How do you get to God? Okay,
nope,
can you repeat what
I
you
asked you? You weren't listening. So listen this time.
The
question that I'm asking. God. Nope, that is not what I asked you. I asked you your initial claim.
Delay. Why don't you repeat it?
You listened to me speak and started talking. Do not blame the phone for you not paying attention. Your initial statement was that you don't believe in. Your initial statement was that you can't know anything for certain, with absolute certainty. That's the whole point of the first 12 minutes of the call. You said that you can't know anything with absolute certainty, and I asked you, is that why you believe in God? And you said yes. My question that I posed to you immediately after that you then spent a long time not answering, was why don't you hold any other supernatural beliefs based on that? Are there any other supernatural beliefs that you hold because you can't know anything for certain?
And I responded with belief versus no. Do you remember that I said that?
That's not the answer to my question.
Listening?
That's not the answer to my question.
It's an answer you don't accept.
Do you believe in a God?
Yes.
Right. So do you believe in any other supernatural things the way you believe in a God because you can't know anything with certainty? Yes or no?
Can you try to rephrase it?
No, that's your fucking words that I'm just giving back to you.
No.
You said that you believe in a God. You said that you believe in a God because you can't know anything with 100% certainty. I am asking you, is there any other supernatural thing that you believe in for the express reason that you cannot know anything with 100% certainty?
I believe you can believe all sorts of things, but you cannot truly 100%
That's not what I asked you. That is not what I asked you.
I'm totally don't get it.
You won't answer a fucking question. See, this is the shit.
Forrest is the problem in this conversation. God damn it, Forrest! Why you got to make so much fucking sense all the time? Why can't you just speak in fucking Jordan Peterson fart?
Okay,
shit?
Let me ask you this way.
Answer the fucking.
Can you
believe? I'm not going to let you ask me anything. I just want you to answer the fucking question.
I'm going to try again. You don't accept.
Okay, right now, answer the question.
Okay. Go.
What do you mean go?
No, ask it. I answer it.
I've asked you three times.
And I keep answering you the same fucking way.
Which isn't an answer. Do you not understand what I'm asking you? Is that the problem?
Says the person that thinks they can rely on their senses?
I don't think you understand what I'm asking you. Either that or you're just actually bullshitting yourself. I asked you, do you believe in God? And you said yes. And then I asked you, do you believe in something else? And you have to go on this fucking tangent of, well, I believe, but I don't know. And knowing and believing is different things.
It's not
Just
a fucking
answer the same
tangent.
fucking yes or no that you answered about God. Do you believe in God?
So you want to craft
Yes.
my argument?
Do you believe in anything else
So you
that's
wanna craft what
supernatural
I
for the
have to say?
same reason? That's the answer.
So you want
Give me an answer. I'm muting you because you won't fucking stop talking. Just answer a straightforward question, Zeno. You said you believe in God because you can't know anything for certain. I am asking you, is there any other supernatural claim that you would claim belief in because you don't know anything for certain? That is a yes or no question. And I will immediately follow it up if you answer yes with what, and if you say no with why. It's a simple question. It's not a trap. I'm just asking if you use the same rules of logic for your God as you do for literally anything else ever, because I don't think you do. Quit bullshitting yourself and answer a fucking question. I'm bringing you back on. What is your answer, Zeno?
I'll dance to your tune. No.
Great. Why not?
Because belief is what you believe. Slowly.
Which is
Belief
the
is
same
what
bullshit
you
you gave me
believe.
earlier.
No is what you know. 100%.
John,
You understand.
do you care?
So because I can't know anything,
I don't know. I'm totally
believe.
lost in this conversation. I don't know if it's my sickness brain fog, but like we just want to know why you believe in God, and you keep giving us this bullshit about belief versus no and shit. And like, that's not getting us anywhere in the conversation. So like, I really don't even know
really
where
not.
to fucking go with this.
Yeah,
Okay,
Zeno,
so
I don't think that you're
I'll
honest with
show you
yourself
how
enough to have this conversation, so I'm going to move on.
Dude,
It is a
you guys
complete
have
waste
not
of our
let me
fucking
speak
time.
the whole-
Yeah, it's our fault. Fuck you. Listen, I'm not going to fucking deal with Zeno, who literally cannot fucking answer a simple yes or no question, and then calls it dancing to my tune to answer if he believes in anything. Do you believe in anything? Well, let me tell you this. Do you believe in God? Oh, yeah, totally. How hard is that? Just say yes or no, and then tell me why. And then you're going to sit here and be a fucking douche and claim that we're the ones who are fucking forcing you to behave like an adult. Oh, shame on us. I'm not dealing with it, dude.
I wouldn't. I mean, I was done with that conversation a while ago.
Yeah. Also, fucking, you guys deal with all these idiots that believe in the Bible. It's a fucking theist call-in show. What do you want? That's the point. Yes, we're going to take people who believe in shit like the Bible, like our next caller. You ready to move on?
I'm good.
We got two Davids on the line, and I'm going to talk to this one. This is a David calling in from Nipple Clamps. Pronouns he, him, is a theist who says that I'm real burpish. 99% of the couples who pray together never get divorced, and that's good evidence for God. David, you're on the line with John Forrest. I think that's terrible evidence for God, and I also think that's not a good thing to brag about. Let's talk about it.
Are you married, Forrest?
I am. And both my wife and I are atheists.
You pray
and
with your wife. Well, good luck with your marriage.
Well, that's stupid and shitty to say.
Oh, that's fucking shitty.
It's a great way to start a conversation, dude. Oh, God, I got a weirdness stuck in my throat. David, you said 99% of the people who pray together get divorced. I have 3 questions for you. I'm going to start writing down. The first one is, do you have any actual evidence for that claim, or are you just pulling that out of your ass?
You know that has been studied, and there's scientific papers about that.
Okay,
Can you
let's assume that's true. Yeah, I want to know, but even if you can't, it doesn't matter. But I am curious to know if you have those references on hand.
I would have to get the references, but it is true. You can just Google 99% couples pray together.
So this is why. Right. Well, so this is why I harp on this first, there, Forrest, is because I could just say anything. Like, I could say most scientists out there agree that if you shove a pipe up your ass, you won't get divorced. Like, I could say that. But that doesn't make it true.
What's going on with your phone.
It's a voice changer. I'm like 90% sure this is the same caller who's called twice already tonight on a voice changer, but good luck.
Yeah, we'll try a couple more things, because either way, I've heard shit like this before, and it's a terrible fucking argument, and I would like our audience to hear why it's a terrible fucking argument. So even if this person is just trolling, we can still make some use of it before they break and just start throwing around slurs or whatever it is they want to do. Yeah, I would like you to answer what John just said, and then I have two more major questions for you before we move forward.
Well, it's hard to remember what John said after that accusation.
Yeah, no, it's Arden threw you off. It was all her fault.
What actually? Oh, okay. No, I said that I can claim a whole lot of bullshit, about stuff, and then say, all scientists agree about this. It's another thing to actually support that with evidence. So that's why I typically am quick to be like, okay, can you support that? Can you show me the studies that show this? Because I didn't come in here to make this claim, but I'm fairly certain that I could go out there and find studies that show that religious relationships have a higher likelihood of being abusive in nature or have some kind of abuse about it. I mean, I saw a documentary tonight about how the Amish are sexually abusing the women in their congregations. So I feel like I could definitely also find studies that show how harmful religion is to people in relationships. So, I mean, good for you if you can bring up some actual evidence for it. But as it stands right now, it just sounds like a bullshit claim to me until I see actual evidence. But I'll let Forrest get to his own.
I have a source.
Oh, okay. I would love to hear it.
It's from a 1997 Gallup poll. It's from Rock Solid Family Ministries. And Gallup is pretty reliable.
So hold on a second. A late 90s Gallup poll from some ministry? Well, I don't know how those words work together, because Gallup is not a ministry.
Its own thing.
But
yeah,
I don't know how those words work together. But
is the ministry the one sharing the information that Gallup gathered? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure. I haven't read the abstract. I'll be honest.
Because here's the thing. I found this that says a 1997 Gallup study done by the National Association of Marriage Enhancement showed the divorce rate for couples who regularly prayed together is 1 out of 1,152 couples. And so that's one thing that I found.
Impressive.
But I found that on just that's what?
That's impressive.
That's just what the claim is. So that's the claim that's being made here. This is not a good source that I've found. This is just a blog that's talking about this, and I haven't found the actual source cited. But that doesn't really matter, because the whole point was just to ask if that was true and if we knew that was true. I'm willing to assume that it's true, because it actually would make sense a little bit if it was true. So let's assume that it's true. Let's assume that all these couples, 99% of the couples that pray together, stay in divorce, do not get divorced. Two major questions that I have. The next one is, why do you think that is, David?
I think the power of God.
Okay, so you don't think it has anything to do with spending meaningful time together with your partner, doing something that matters to both of you together, which definitely benefits relationships, and you don't think that it has anything to do with a participating in a culture that strongly frowns on divorce. You think that it's just God that is holding these people together.
It's in Jesus Christ.
So no thoughts, nothing about what I just said. You're just going to repeat another name of a different God. Okay. Follow-up question, David, is staying together always a good thing?
Men and women become one flesh. So yeah, unless you want to cut off your flesh.
So even if they're in an abusive relationship, they shouldn't get divorced?
If it's abusive, he would be in jail.
That's not true.
That's not true.
That's obviously not true. If you like stats so much, you should look up the stats on how very, very, very rarely domestic abusers and rapists actually go to jail. Abuse happens all the time. Domestic abuse in marriages it happens a lot. In religious marriages as well, quite a bit. So I ask you a question again. If someone is in an abusive marriage, should they not get divorced?
The church needs to step in that scenario and make sure he stops abusing.
So you don't think that they should be separated from the person that is abusing them. You think that the church should step in and somehow or another stop this person from abusing their spouse.
Yes.
Which means you think that God is powerful enough, because I asked you a minute ago why they stay together, and you said it was the power of God. So God is powerful enough to keep someone trapped in a marriage with their abuser, but not powerful enough to stop them from being abused. Why is that?
Infinite love.
Infinite love, except for the abuse victim, who gets to continue being beaten and raped until the church helps out. Which you should also look up statistics on how churches usually deal with claims and accusations of rape and abuse. It's not usually in the way that you seem to think that it is.
True.
I just want to add this in here. I just found a Sage journal article, which Forrest can tell me if that's a bad source to use, but basically the rate of abuse was higher in highly religious families. So it seems like it. Yeah, so the rate of abuse within families seems to be exacerbated by how religiously motivated the family, or how religion is integrated into the family. If it's more integrated into the family, it seems like the rate of sexual abuse is higher. What do you say about that?
I would say that's an issue in fundamentalist Protestant evangelical KJV only circles. That's not really an issue in apostolic Christian.
What's your evidence? What's your evidence that? What's your evidence that this journal article that I found is only talking about that very hyper specific denomination of Christianity?
I would say it's because the Prophet Muhammad was actually exiled in the Bible to Egypt.
What?
So that's a completely
the Prophet
different
Muhammad
claim.
in the Bible?
Yes.
Yeah. There's man, I don't want to call it too early, John, but like this one's on you as soon as you're ready. This guy's clearly not serious. So like if you want to keep going, I'm down to keep going. It's weird to have I think it's like 3 calls in a row now where somebody genuinely does not give a shit about what they think. And like, I'm kind of bored of it. I've got better shit to do. So like, I want to put on a good show, and this kind of makes for a bad show. Do you want to continue on? I'm fine with it if you do. I'm not trying to pressure you.
I mean, it's nearly 9 for me here, so I'm fine if we go ahead and go, because like I don't even know how to deal with how this guy, because it just seems like, no, and full offense meant, David, but it just kind of seems like you're just spouting off bullshit and expecting people to believe you, and like that's just not going to work for us, at least.
Especially considering the fact that like the initial claim was that like, oh, it's such a good thing all these people aren't getting divorced. And then John's going to say, hey, here's actually a really high proportion of religious people that are being abused. And you're like, fuck it, they're the wrong religion though. That going back to your original claim, you should still be happy that they're together and that their church is doing nothing, because at least they're not being divorced. And also it says that you say this is on the call screen, you said this is good evidence for God. This is shit evidence for God. This is evidence for a God that likes abuse. If this is indeed evidence for a God, which it fucking isn't. It's evidence for cultural cohesion. So like, you clearly don't give a shit about the things that you think. You've called in to just say a bunch of nonsense. You've not really answered any questions seriously. And the God that you worship is either useless or an asshole. So I don't think there's any reason to continue on, David. Unless you have something else to give us that's worth our time.
Well, I'd like to present evidence.
This was supposed to be your evidence. Do you have different evidence?
Yes, I think Christianity has been the biggest source of social justice in world history.
That's an insane thing to say. You know that's an insane thing to say. There's no way that you actually think that and have thought about it for 2 seconds. You can't do both. You can either think about what you just said or you can believe what you just said. You can't do both.
Jesus literally said you need to sell everything and follow him and feed the poor in order to go to heaven. So,
is that what churches do? Is that what the Catholic Church
That's what I
does?
do.
Is that what you sell everything? How are you talking to us on a phone right now?
Within reason.
Yeah, so it's not selling everything. It's selling everything within reason, which isn't what Jesus said. John, your mic's still muted. Yeah, see, this is the thing, man. You're just pulling this out of some hole. I don't know which one, but I'm not interested in finding out.
It's definitely the
more.
asshole.
It seems to be. I don't know.
Okay, so Forrest,
Yeah,
can I
so
ask an honest question?
an
I'm gonna let
honest
John-
Where
question.
should I go from here, if you're being honest? Where should I go from here?
What? Where should you go from here? Probably.
Where should I go from here?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what he's saying.
Are you asking us like where your beliefs should
Yeah, I'm
go or
saying
what
that-
you should do?
Yes. If I have these beliefs that I'm attached to that are beneficial for my life, where should I go from here if they can be proven?
I think that you should like grapple with the fact that the beliefs you have that are beneficial for your life are wholly unbeneficial and deeply detrimental to the lives of millions and millions of other people, especially women, people of color, and LGBT people. And then maybe grapple with the fact that that fucking sucks and you have no good reason to believe the things that you do. So quit believing them. John, any other notes?
So,
No, I literally have no idea what's even being discussed at this point. Like, as far as like from David's end goes, like, I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to go which way or another as far as your beliefs go. Like, I don't care what you believe.
Yeah. I care about what you believe because I
Yeah,
don't want you to
obviously
hurt
you do
anybody.
care. You're
And I
trying
think
to
that your
convince me.
beliefs do. We're not, dude, you called us.
how does it hurt anyone if I? How does it hurt anyone if I pray to Jesus every day?
It means that you are holding a belief system which fundamentally devalues literally all people, but especially certain groups. And beliefs inform actions. So the longer you let yourself
Right.
get sucked into that shit, the more likely you are to turn into a monster, which is what the God of the Bible is. And if you worship a monster, you're going to start emulating that monster.
Not only that, but like,
Have you heard of progressive
like
Christianity?
it's hold on. Progressive Christianity. Okay. So like, you're so you asked, what does it hurt to pray to Jesus every day? And like, that's an incredibly myopic like point to make, because like what Forrest said, beliefs inform actions. People that pray every day to Jesus are the same ones that will deny their child insulin when they have diabetes and cause them to die. And I believe there's a couple of counties in Idaho where they pray to Jesus every day, and their child mortality rate has skyrocketed past the state's child mortality rate. And that's due to the fact that they forego medical treatments for women and children when they give birth, and they rely on this faith healing kind of bullshit. So, I mean, just saying, oh, what does it hurt to pray to Jesus every day? I mean, I think that you have to think of the wide swath of things that happen, considering the people that do pray to Jesus every day for various different things. So, like, it's an incredibly myopic statement to make, and you're just not going to have a good time when you make it. And then, I'm sorry, you tried to interrupt me with something.
He was talking about progressive Christianity.
Yeah,
and the
I'm
problem with
wondering-
progressive Christianity is that it requires you to ignore most of the Bible in order to come up with something that is more palatable and marketable in 2024. It's just rebranding and rainbow washing and trying to make this thing look like it's actually not like the Bible is a horrific book. And you're trying to paint it as something that's actually allegorical and poetic and beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And Jesus actually loves all the people that we have historically been using Jesus to persecute and to murder. And actually, it's a totally different thing now. It's bullshit. that is used whenever churches are running out of donations and need more asses in seats. So I'm not convinced by it. I'm not impressed by it. You shouldn't be either, David. But I think we're going to move on because I think you need to think more about your actual beliefs before you continue to spout them. If indeed you do believe these things and are not just a troll calling in with a different voice changer, which is yet to be seen. Have an awesome rest of your day, David. We're going to move on now. Bye-bye. Man, I don't like being a butt, but like I feel like the last 3 calls had to be real grumpy with people because they're just not fucking serious.
Yeah, and like it's been a real kind of a mind fuck for me just because of the brain fog that I got going on. I don't know, like I feel like maybe I'm not understanding them, but then it's like, oh no, I'm totally not understanding them, and so it's been a little mind fucky for me.
I think David is also the user Drink Water who is in the chat saying this caller's good. He has them stumped. I think
I was literally just saying that in chat.
Yeah, I think he was getting into the chat to talk himself up, and is totally not Mike and is totally not Shauna. Man, weird whole thing. We have another David that I would like to talk to. Let's see if this one is any better. We've got David calling in from Camel Apples. Camel Apples? Bumpy. Sweet.
Yeah, let's do it. Camel Apples.
Yeah. Who's a theist who wants to know where we as atheists get our morals from. John, I'm excited to hear what you have to say. I know I have some words as well, but I've been talking quite a bit, and I want to hear more of you because I am a long-winded bitch. David, you're on the line with Forrest and John. How you doing today?
Yeah, I've been listening to the last few callers. I think they're fairly kind of elementary, and I agree with what you're saying about them. So I hope I'm a little bit better. I've called so before. I wanted to say I have watched your arguments, Forrest, on the against creationists. I won't say who, and you really do make some good points. So you do know a lot about science.
I appreciate that. That really means a lot.
And you're very informed. I, as a lot of people, used to be an atheist, of course, and I just wondered. I don't know where. Just in general, like I became a theist because I wanted to have morals, and that's what I look to the Bible for. And I know you've heard that before, but I haven't argued it in a while.
I don't believe you.
And,
go on.
And well, that's. I mean, I won't even go into the fact that people are, we believe people are sinners, and where do you get your definition from? What is good and right from, just in general? That's just sort of what I want to discuss.
John, you want to kick us off?
Oh yeah, sure. So I feel like those are very subjective in nature, and so like everybody has their own sort of foundation that they build throughout their lifetime in order to make moral determinations, like to determine what is good and what is bad. So like when I say something is good or something is bad, I usually have some kind of like goal in mind, like some kind of end goal for that. And typically whenever I'm making these kind of moral presumptions or moral conclusions, I have the goal in mind of, being a good person or, positively affecting my family and my community and all this other stuff. So like, there's a lot of different ways in which you can sort of take that. And so I typically follow along the lines of humanism. And so like humanism definitely puts, the welfare of human beings above the supposed needs of deities and all this other stuff. So like, that's typically where I'm going with that. Just as a very general, I guess, sort of starting place would be like a very humanistic view of the world as far as determining what is good and what is bad.
Well, that could also, humanism could be, 7 different things to 6 different people. You know what I'm saying? It could be, my
humanism is pretty well defined, isn't it? I mean, I feel like there's not 45 types of.
Okay, people are naturally out for themselves, right? People, are naturally, want to make a living and,
No, I think looking at humans living under capitalism and assuming that it is human nature to be greedy is like looking at humans underwater and saying that it is human nature to drown. I don't think that humans are naturally out for themselves or anything like that. I think that's something that's taught.
So you think, say, for example, in this country, the people are brought up to be greedy through capitalism? I've heard that before, and I'm actually, I think that there's a lot of things obviously wrong with capitalism. When it gets carried away, and it's wrong to be greedy, and I'm a right winger and all that. But I know that they get a lot of. But
Wait, what?
Of course, I'm opposed to communism too, but I don't even want to get into it. Stalin and Mao, it's obvious what they've, how they under communism, how
David,
their society is. Yeah, go ahead,
David. I promise you do not want to have that conversation with me. I suggest you move past it unless you want to go down that road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's just talk about the law is based on godly, moral things from the Bible. Let's say the founders, this is what they wanted to bring about.
What godly, moral things from the Bible are we talking about here?
All right, let's say the 10 Commandments. Is there anything wrong with them?
Okay. Let's talk, Forrest, do you want to talk about the 10 Commandments and how they're moral? All right. Can you read commandment number 10 for me?
Yeah, I'll pull it up right now because I don't want to fucking dig for it. Which version? Because there are like 3 different versions of the 10 Commandments in the Bible.
Okay, well, yeah, you can pick one. I really don't have one with me right now. I mean, I'll say 10 Commandments.
Well, no, I mean,
so here I've got
bringing
the list here.
I probably know 7 of them, but you're right. I don't know all of them. I memorize. Go ahead.
It's weird that you're calling this a moral guideline when you don't know where they, what they even are. Exodus 20.
Well, I know 7 of them.
Is where I'm finding. Yeah, but they're like the whole foundation of your morality is what you're saying here, and that's weird. Also, I don't. I'm going to be honest with you. We don't have to go down this road if you don't want to. We can ignore what I'm about to say if you like. It's fine. But like, I don't fucking.
No, go ahead. I want to hear that.
You get your morality. When you say you get your morality from the Bible, I don't believe you because you're not in jail right now. Okay, so this is the first one that I pulled up. It's from Exodus 20. There is a completely different set of 10 Commandments in chapter 34. But this is the one from chapter 20. Yes, and it's also the same story. They just get it wrong on one or the other. But this is the most commonly accepted one. Number 1 is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Is that a moral statement or is that an ego statement?
Well, see, that's not an egotistical statement from God if he, exists and, is in control of, rules the universe. And, I'm saying.
Jealousy, is jealousy and ego like a sin? Is that a problem?
Yes.
Yes. So that's
for human beings.
Thou shalt have no other. Right.
For
thou shalt have no other gods for me. Thou shalt have no other gods for me. Then that's chapter 20 verse 3 is thou shalt have no other gods before me. That is the first commandment. Chapter 20 verse 5. So the same chapter, just 2 lines down, says, thou shalt not bow down thyself for them nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting iniquity upon the fathers and children unto the 3rd and 4th generation of them that hate me. So God says, I am jealous, and if you pray to any other gods, I will punish you and your children and your grandchildren. Is that moral or is that ego?
Okay, when God is jealous, it's for a good reason and it's appropriate. And that's a good question.
So it's not a sin when God does the sin.
No, see, God can't sin. See,
you're absolutely
hard
right. You are correct. God can't sin because the definition of sin is going against God. God can do whatever the fuck he wants because God is lawful neutral. He is only beholden to himself.
Yeah, in a way.
Which means, David, you do not have objective morality. You have subjective morality. Your morality is based on whatever God feels at the time. It is God's subjective opinion. You have no objective standard for morality. It is just whatever God thinks is right at any given moment.
Well, you could say that most people have subjective reality of some kind, so they get the morality from their environment or whatever But
that doesn't get you out of the mind that you're in, David.
Well, if you want to call it that, I'll grant you that. I will grant you that a believer should go by what God says, whether he feels it's right or wrong. Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're saying that right now. Can we, Forrest, do you mind if we fast forward through the 10 Commandments real quick?
By all means.
Yeah.
All right. So, I'm glad that can you repeat that one more time there, David?
Humans, in other words, humans have a distorted view of morality. That's what human nature is.
Okay. I'm sorry. I was really just looking for you to repeat the fact that we should follow what God commands, because that is good, right?
Yeah,
that's
ideally, but nobody does the ideal thing.
Right. Okay, great. He does the ideal thing. Exodus 20:17. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife or woman, technically in the Hebrew there. You shall not, or male or female slave, ox, donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. Are you married, just by chance?
No.
No? Okay.
Sorry,
if you were married, would you consider your wife to be your property?
No, that was a different time.
Okay, you can agree. You can agree in that in Exodus 20:17, it lists women or the wife or the man's woman as his property, right? This is directly from God, mind you. Like this is directly out of his mouth here to Moses. God said that women are the property of men, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you think that's a good statement to make?
Okay. I could
it's
go
yes
on
or
to
no
say
answer.
I could go on to say that's a different dispensation, as you know. It's a different kind of. This
is directly from God. Do you? Let me ask you this: is God the same in the past as He is in the present, as He will be in the future?
Right. Yes. Correct.
Yes, He is.
That's correct.
So this is God.
Right.
This is God talking to Moses in the Bible. God tells Moses, women are property. Also, it's okay to own other people as property, like in addition to women in general. So you think that these are good and moral things to implement in a society?
Well, yeah, I'm sure I could look up No, I don't have the answer for that one. That's a good point.
Oh my God! So let me recap this real quick, David. Let me recap this. So we started off with you saying that the founders of America or the United States, they thought that the Bible embodied good morals directly from God, and that's why they built America off of that understanding. But when we get to this part, you're saying, oh, I can't really answer that as far as Exodus 20:17 and the fact that the entirety of the Bible paints women as property of men, as well as the ability to own slaves, which incidentally is part of America's founding, even though we don't actually implement that anymore. But somehow it's still good, and you just don't have an answer for it.
Well, I believe that it was explained in the New Testament that slavery was wrong, and that
where
I can.
But you just said God doesn't change,
right? But there were rules. There were slaves back then, obviously, and that was acceptable to society. It was a way of explaining.
Let's get something straight.
Yeah.
Let's get something straight. It wasn't just actual chattel. Hold on. It wasn't just chattel slavery, like I feel like you're meaning. It was sexual slavery as well as like indentured servitude. There's multiple different types of slavery that are directly endorsed and condoned by God.
Yeah. And the thing is, man, like what I don't think that you think slavery is good. You don't have to sit here and clarify that you think slavery is bad. I give you the benefit of the doubt, assuming that you're a decent person, right? But the
thank
issue
you.
is, the issue is, like you just said, God doesn't change, and you said that it's acceptable at the time. It's just a timely thing. Do you think that eating pork was acceptable at a time?
Yeah, that's certain. Well, it's actually acceptable, as you know, under the New Testament now, right? You know,
right, but that's Peter, the thing, man, is that God, it was acceptable to eat pork. It was acceptable to trim your beard. It was acceptable to wear garments of mixed fabrics. It was acceptable to eat shrimp. It was acceptable to touch the skin of a dead pig. It was acceptable to work on the Sabbath. It was acceptable to do all sorts of things. And God was very fucking clear not to do any of that stuff. But he couldn't find the fucking time to be like, hey, don't rape people and don't own people as farming equipment and don't beat your kids and he couldn't do any of that. He had he had 10 commandments to work with. And we go back and we look at them. It is the first 4, if I remember correctly. Yes, the first 4 commandments. So almost 50%, 40% of his time in these 10 big rules for life are all about him. Suck my dick properly is the 40% of this fucking 10 commandments. And then for the last 60%, it's totally normal shit. Honor your parents, which isn't always a good commandment. Don't kill. Into that, except for the fact that he commands people to kill all the fucking time. Don't lie. Sure, I'm into that, except for sometimes that's also good. And then you get don't covet your neighbor's property, which includes slaves and women. And like, that sucks. He could have used the first 4 to say don't own slaves, to say don't beat people, to say don't rape people, to say don't be pedophiles, to say don't do genocide, to say anything, to say fucking don't make another goddamn Fast and Furious movie, anything. He could have done a million things that would have been very helpful. But instead, he was like, listen, y'all, I need you to be nice to me because I'm very jealous and I will torture you and your family if you're mean to me. Does that sound like a powerful God, like a loving God, like a God worthy of worship? Anything?
Yeah, I'm sure you've asked, other Christians about the slavery thing, and I don't know what their answer is. I guess they have. Do you remember what they said to you about this? I'm sure you asked other people who know the New Testament. Go ahead,
David. I'm going to answer your question. But I'm also going to hold you to the question that I just asked you. So to answer your question, and that's only because I like you, David. I like you. You and I we're buddies right now. You're the first caller that hasn't made me extremely upset today. So I've talked to Christians about this, and generally speaking, what they try to do is that they try to say that slavery in the Bible is different than what we think of slavery here in America, when it very obviously is not. There are different kinds of slavery in the Bible. Some of them are more benign than others, a little bit less violent than others, but there is no such thing as good slavery, David, and I think you can probably agree with that. So there are several different kinds of slavery in the Bible, but none of them are good, and some of them are downright fucking awful, and all of them are ordained by God. So God has these 10 commandments here, different versions of them, but at least the 10 we can agree on. He spends 40% of those 10 commandments saying, be nice to me, and don't worship anybody else, and say good things about me, and make sure not to use my name in vain. And then the last 60% of them is kind of shitty about it, and also includes some slave stuff in there too. Back to the question that I asked you, does that sound like a God that's worthy of worship?
Okay, I've actually been questioning things like that lately, and it's been bothering me because I know that what you're saying is in the Bible, and there are a lot of injustices in the world. Okay, we all know that. There are a lot of this is man's slavery is wrong when man's inhumanity. Man, I'm sure you know all about that. Say slavery in this country. I just you want to find a verse. Let's say that God, where he condemns slavery and says, for that as an example, in the New Testament or in the Old Testament, saying that it's wrong. And I'm telling you, there are verses that are in there. Paul says to Titus to free the slaves, and that
no, that's not what he says.
Why did even if it was what he said, even if it was what he said, why didn't Jesus say that?
Well, you're supposed to be slaves to him, and that's a different spiritual thing. I know it's different, and
That sucks.
and then Christians say that that the abolitionists were Christians, obviously,
As
because
were
you're
the
supposed
slave
to treat your
owners.
fellow. Yes, and
Yeah, so the same Bible with the same stories in it were used by the slave owners to say the curse of Ham specifically applies to black people and that they are supposed to be the slaves of white
I've
people.
heard that before.
Yeah. So here's the thing, David. Like, you said, I asked why Jesus didn't say free the slaves, and you said, well, you're supposed to be slaves. That's not a good enough answer. Why didn't Jesus free the slaves? Why didn't Jesus say, I have come to change the world, and I want you all to love each other and to follow me, and there will be no more slavery? Why did he not say that, and instead said, slaves should behave? What were you saying, John? You're raising your hand.
Well, sorry. I was just going to say, Jesus literally says, slaves, obey your masters, I believe, is what he says. I'll double check that. Maybe that's Paul too, but
I think it wasn't Jesus. I think it was Paul that said that. I could be wrong, but let's double check, because I think Jesus talks about slaves, but I think
in Ephesians,
Colossians,
right.
yeah. That's actually Paul.
That runs into the thing that I only know that because I said the same thing on the line and some people called me out on it. And so I appreciate people correcting me. But that runs back to David. A minute ago, you said that in the New Testament, Paul says that to free the slaves. And he also said, slaves, obey your masters. So Paul's not exactly consistent. And also, Paul's not God. Jesus is. So why the fuck why did God say have slaves? And then Jesus didn't say don't have slaves? If this is supposed to be the guy, man, and 40% of his commandments are all about him and his dick, and then you have him coming down to sacrifice himself to himself, and he can't fucking say humans aren't farming equipment or don't fuck kids? What is that, dude?
Well, look, I know what you're saying. You're questioning. I know you. I've questioned God about a lot of things. About what are going on, whether it's moral or not. But the thing about slavery is that, we're like I said. Well, the Jews were slaves, right? Obviously, and God. Okay, here's a good example. God made an example from Moses. That's how you're supposed to. I don't want my people to be slaves. He sent. That's what
David.
Exodus is all about.
David,
that's an example.
Have you read Exodus?
You're supposed to.
Have you read Exodus?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay, so then that's not true.
You know the story.
Then
God freed the slaves
that's
from Pharaoh.
not true. Then, David, that's not true. Come on.
What's not true?
That what you just said, dude. God did free the slaves from Pharaoh. Except no, that's actually not true.
Moses
Pharaoh freed the slaves. Pharaoh freed the slaves, but God had to send down his plagues first.
With the 10, with the plagues, after he got threatened,
he didn't get threatened.
Used Moses.
No, David, come on, be serious with me. We're bros, remember? We don't lie to each other. God did not threaten him. God actually carried out those plagues. What happened in the book, and you can go check this if you want, is Moses told the Pharaoh to let the slaves go, and Pharaoh said, "Yes, I will." Pharaoh wanted to let the slaves go. And God hardened his heart so that he would not do it.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes. And then God didn't just punish the Pharaoh. God punished all of the people of Egypt and their livestock and the wildlife. God turned the rivers to blood. God sent frogs and locusts. God killed all of their cattle. God killed all of their firstborn children. Not for the things that they were doing wrong, but because of what their king was doing wrong after God forced him to do it. God made the Pharaoh keep slaves and then punished the children of Egypt for the Pharaoh's decision to keep slaves. That's not a story about freeing slaves. That's a story about God swinging his nuts around Egypt, dude. That's not serious.
David, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
All right. Put yourself in God's shoes in this situation, right? Let's say that you're God and you want to free your people from bondage, from slavery. is your plan to do that, to one, make it so that the guy that's holding the slaves isn't going to release the slaves just so that you can kill all the firstborn children? Or are you just going to magically make him release the slaves? Which one would you choose? And this is a bit of a false dichotomy because there's a multitude of different possibilities, but I'm just saying, like, of those two, which one would you choose?
Okay, obviously this has been discussed before, and it wanted to show the hardness of Pharaoh's heart, that he wouldn't also free the slaves. And
God hardened his heart. God, this wasn't like
Pharaoh said he wouldn't.
No.
I mean,
this wasn't like a demonstration of how hard. Jesus Christ, David, shut the fuck up.
All right, go ahead.
Hold on.
I'm talking, David. This isn't like, Pharaoh's heart is hardened and isn't letting these people go. This is God hardened his heart so that he wouldn't let them go, just so that he could kill all the firstborn children of the Egyptians. So, like, this isn't like a demonstration of anything other than God has this very elaborate plan to kill children. And I'm asking you, which would you choose? Would you create a situation where you have to kill a whole bunch of children? Or would you just rectify the situation without the need for killing children? This is a very simple question.
Okay, do you believe that people have free will? Or some kind of
Oh my God.
David.
Can you answer my question?
David, answer his question, man. Don't do this. You're better than this.
Okay, you're saying God should magically do it without having to, go through the hail and the
Is God all powerful?
The blood. Yeah.
Is God all powerful?
He's all powerful. But
okay, he's all powerful, so he can definitely accomplish. David, I'm sorry, you're saying stupid things, and so I've got to interrupt. So if God is all powerful and he can accomplish his task without killing a buttload of children, don't you think that a good and righteous God would have accomplished it without the need for killing a whole fuck ton of children?
It would seem that way.
I get it. You don't want to say yes.
You.
You don't want to say yes. I get it. You don't want to say yes because it makes God look bad, right?
I could see you looking from the outside and to to the stories in some of the Bibles and see, well, why would God allow something or do something like that?
So,
I've looked at things like that.
So are you saying that there's
also.
good justification for killing a fuck ton of children? Like, are you saying that there's a good justification?
I'm saying we don't know what the answer is. That we don't know. We don't. That's the thing. People.
Right,
that's what faith is. That's.
Well, David.
Yeah, obviously.
David. Here's the thing. Like I just pulled up one example. Okay, because the whole story of the freeing of the Israelite slaves and all these things, like it's wrought with this. But this is in chapter 10, Exodus chapter 10, verse 16. Pharaoh called to Moses and Aaron in haste and said, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Please forgive, I pray you, my sin at once, in treatment of your God, that he may take away my pain and death. He went to Moses went out from the Pharaoh and entreated with the Lord, and the Lord brought in a wind and blew away all the locusts. Pharaoh apologized and said, I'm sorry. I've done things wrong. I can't go on. Please, you and your God, please forgive me. The very next line, chapter 20, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the children of Israel go. And then the next line is Moses, and then Lord told Moses to stretch out his staff and do these things, and Moses stretched out his staff, and the darkness was upon Egypt for 3 days. And it's over and over. Pharaoh says, I'm sorry. I've sinned against your God. I've sinned against you. Please forgive me. And I want to let these slaves go. And God hardens his heart so that he will not let them go. And then the next day, he punishes the people of Egypt again. And you're going to sit here and say, we can't know the reason. We don't know why God did these things. When in the next, you skip forward past Numbers into Judges. Let me see where Judges is. Yes, Judges just after Joshua. In the book of Judges, The entire fucking book, David, is the Israelites blaspheme, or they do something that God doesn't want them to do, or they complain, they whine, they do whatever. And so God puts them back into slavery. In the book of Judges, read it over and over and over again. God puts the Israelites into slavery, and then the Israelites cry and say, I'm sorry, we shouldn't have sinned. And so God kills all the people who are enslaving them and sets them free. And then they complain and say, we're miserable. We were better off as slaves. And so God puts them into slavery again. And then they say, we don't want to be slaves. And so God kills the people who are enslaving them. This happens like 5 fucking times in this book. So, like, your God isn't anti-slavery, David. Your God is anti-slavery when he doesn't want to be, when he feels like being anti-slavery. At all other times, God's pro-slavery. Slavery, like all things to your God, is subjective, based on his own opinion and his own attitude, and what side of the bed he woke up in the morning is whether or not he thinks it's acceptable to own human beings as property, to have sex with children, to massacre an entire civilization. It's all just about his mood. And you're going to sit here and say, well, we can't understand the mind of God. Dude, you don't fucking have to. It's a bad thing. This is evil. No matter what, this is an evil thing. And I think you, David, I think you know that. And I think that you are too afraid, and I don't mean that to be mean. I really don't. I think you are too afraid to admit that that's evil, because that would be offending the God that you think might be real.
No, I know what you're saying, and I have questioned. These are one of the things that in the last few years that I've been questioning. You make some really good points, and I don't. I know that's what you're correct about, what the Bible says about the Jewish people and him punishing them, and it doesn't seem fair, and it doesn't seem right, and it just. All I can say is just I've asked other people about that, other believers. It says that that just shows the human heart, is sinful, and that we bring on the punishment to ourselves, and just like they brought on the punishment to themselves.
Hold on.
That's not good enough.
No, it's not.
I know it,
but
I know.
So sinful is just offending God's preferences, right? Like, that's what sinful means.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's breaking the law. In any way.
No. Well, it's
running
breaking
a red light
God's.
is sinful.
No. Where does it say in the Bible that that's sinful?
Well, because you're breaking the laws of the land. Any law of the land.
Okay,
so
what Bible verse?
Hold the fuck. Wait a second,
Okay.
David.
You have to ask him, but
No,
Go
David.
ahead.
You don't believe that. I am giving you the benefit of the doubt and saying you don't, because that is an awful thing to say. Are you seriously going to say that breaking the law of the land
all right, that's
is also
not a good
sinful?
example. You're right. I'd rather go into the raping and slavery thing. Okay, you're right.
Not the example. Every part of that sentence is evil. You understand that, right? Saying breaking the law of the land is sinful against God, that's wrong. That would mean
probably an inappropriate definition of sin. Go ahead.
That would mean that the people who ran the Underground Railroad and the resistance to the Nazis were sinning because they were sinning because they were breaking the law of the land. That's fucked up.
Well, I mean, rape and murder, obviously, and stealing are against the law. I'm just saying law in general. I'm sure
that's not against,
or when they weren't.
Yeah,
right, and God didn't consider rape to be against
changed
law.
Throughout history through societal norms, obviously, right? Some things that were legal.
Well, according to you, God changed His own laws, right?
It would seem that way. I'll grant you that too. Yes, sometimes it looks like that.
So how can God remain the same in the past and in the present and as He will be in the future, but also change at the same time? Is God somehow like time boxed to whatever time period we're talking about?
No, I don't have it. That's a good point. I don't have an explanation for that.
So, okay, listen, David, this is what I'm getting out of this call. David, this is what I'm getting out of this call is that you have questions about God's conclusions here, moral conclusions, and laws that he's made in the Bible. You have questions about them, but at the same time, you're saying that we shouldn't question them. Are you saying that we shouldn't question them and that it's just faith?
You should question them. You're supposed to question them, and I just don't have the answers for things. Obviously, is basic. Obviously, slavery is wrong, and it's always wrong. You know.
Well,
I don't have the answer for why
but you're telling me
didn't say that in the New Testament.
David, but I'm in a weird position because like I don't find it to be that hard of a decision to say that raping a woman is wrong or that killing a child is wrong. These are not controversial like decisions. And I get the feeling that Forrest is in agreement here. The topics that we're talking about are not like, oh, this is such a morally complex issue. It's literally, should God kill children? Like, that's one. Should God command the raping of women and small girls? These are not hard moral like decisions to make here, David. They simply aren't. Do you think that it's a hard moral decision to make whether or not to order people to kill children or to rape little girls?
But the point is about the more. It's a spiritual.
No, you
law.
answer that question. You answer that question, David. Don't you dare run away from that question. You answer that question.
Okay, and is it obviously wrong to go ahead morally? Yeah, some things that seem to be obviously morally wrong are wrong. Right? Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
and
yeah, man. Which means to me, David, which means to me that you are a better person than the God that you believe in. If you can say it is obviously morally wrong to own slaves or to rape children,
it controls the universe, and you know the definition of God. You know, it's all powerful. He does things that don't seem in man's ways.
David,
his ways are right,
David,
no matter.
David,
I know there's
I'm sorry
a
to interrupt you so much,
that.
but
Go ahead.
I swear to fuck, I've heard this so many times. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I
know
promise you're
have.
not getting anywhere with that shit. You're not getting anywhere with that
I know
shit.
you
And I
have.
love you too much to let you continue on with it because you know it's bullshit. That is, David, that is what we call an everlasting thought stopper. It is meaning that you are not participating in the act of thinking. You are using that to quit thinking, and I don't want you to do that shit, man. I love you too much to let you do it. I want you to think about it for one fucking second, all right? Seriously think.
I've been thinking about that
this.
lately.
It bothers me. There, David, answer me this and answer me honestly. Tell me true. Tell me straight. Is there ever, any, ever, forever, no matter what, ever, any reason and any reason ever a reason when slavery is acceptable? Yes or no?
See, now that's a difficult question.
No, it goddamn isn't, David.
No,
no, it is not.
This is not a difficult question. There's no good
always,
reason to have another person as a slave.
Okay, human slavery is always wrong. Yes. Okay. I'm getting
good.
Then why does
then
why does
you
God
are now
order
in a
it?
position?
Why
not
does
even
God
why.
condone
Not even why.
it? Is that what you're asking?
No, not even that. Not even that. That's too much. Not even why. That you acknowledge that he does. God does actually tell people to keep slaves. He tells you exactly how to do it.
Yes, and he tells
here's where you're
David
at, David.
to go out and kill people. King David,
here's where you're
in
at,
the Bible.
David. You agree with me. You agree with John and I that slavery is always wrong all the time, no matter what. Period. End of discussion. There are no ifs, ands, buts, maybes,
beings.
excepts, none of it. Yeah, sure. Yes, absolutely. Because we're not talking about any other shit, right? We're talking about human beings.
Right.
Owning another human being as property and beating them and passing them down to your children. It is awful. It is always bad. No ifs, ands, buts, maybes, excepts, nothing. It is always wrong forever, period. And then here's the second thing. God said do slavery. So You are talking about a God, no matter what his purpose is, no matter what divinity he has, no matter how big he is, nothing. Take all of that shit out of your head for a second. I swear to God, it'll be there in a minute. Just put it the fuck down and just be here with me for a minute. You are worshiping a guy that is telling you to do something that you know is wrong all the time, no matter what. What does that tell you?
What is it when you hold two contradictory ideas together at once? So you know what I'm saying.
Cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance, and it hurts.
I'll plead to that.
Yes, David. David, I love you, man. I want you to be here with me right now. I want you to just for real. I know this might sound weird, but I think you might know what I'm saying. Just for real, take all this shit that you have been telling yourself for however many years about. Well, God has mysterious ways, or God works in this, and we can't understand this or that, or it's a relativity and different times, and all of that shit, all of these fucking thought stoppers, just put them down for 1 second. They're going to be right there when we're done with this call, waiting for you to fucking just cripple you even further. Just put them down for a second and just be serious with you and me. Just us, man. Two bros right here. Just be serious. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a guy that you think is real. God is real, and he tells you to do something that you know is evil. Is that good for you? Is that good enough for you?
See, I'll admit I'm having those are one of the qualms that I'm having with. Yes, it's I don't know how to answer that right now. I don't know how to say that right now.
That's David.
A lot of people, I think, have problems with that.
They do. They do, David. And that's why I'm talking to you about it. Because what you're feeling right now is the thing that I am fighting against. That fear you're feeling right now, you know the answer, David. You fucking know. And I'm not pulling the bullshit about people who say, like, oh, you know that God's real. No, I fucking believe in you, David. You know that this is evil. You know that when God tells the people to go kill everybody in the town but keep all the virgin girls for themselves, you know what the fuck he meant, and you know that's evil. When God says to go kill all these people, including all of their infants and babies and cattle, you know that's fucking evil. When God says to own slaves, you know that's fucking evil. You know it's evil, but you're convincing yourself. I think you're honest when you're saying, I don't know what to say about this. What you mean is you can't fucking say it because you're scared of the implication of it. And I want you to just spend the rest of your fucking night, man, just staring yourself and your God in the face and knowing that you are making yourself, you're bending yourself into a fucking moral pretzel, dude, doing things believing things that you would never, ever, ever allow anybody else to believe, that you would never allow yourself to believe because you believe in this monster in the sky. And I'm telling you, man, even if that monster is real, you don't owe it your allegiance, and its sins far outweigh yours. And it has no fucking right to judge you or to take away your humanity. You, David, are a better person than this God. And as soon as you let go of that fear, I think you'll be able to find out this God isn't real in the first place. It's a boogeyman. And it's got you so fucking scared and choked up that you're believing in horrible shit. And I love you too much to let you keep doing that, David.
Well, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, and I've been having obviously, doubts, and I'm,
That's a good thing. Those doubts are you being a good person, David. That's your humanity breaking through, brother.
A lot of people say, this is right. Whether if I have faith and that no matter what God says, that I'm gonna he wants me to do this or that. Right? Of course, I mean something's wrong. It's wrong. It doesn't matter who says it. And it's right. It's right,
man. And
that applies to God too, right?
That has to apply to God. And David, you've got a community here. I'm telling you, the people who watch this show, so many of them have been through the shit that you're going through right now and have come out of it on the other side smiling because they're able to own up to the fact that not because they're a bad person, because you were abused, because you were taught this evil shit and told that it was good long enough that you started to believe it yourself. because you gave in to the same doublethink that has convinced billions of people before you and billions of people after you. Because you were abused, David, you've been taught this evil shit and you believe this evil shit, and there's a part of you that knows that it's fucking wrong. And there's a lot of people in this community that have been through that. And I hope you reach out to them. I hope you reach out to Recovering from Religion. I hope you talk to people in the chat. And I hope that you listen to people who have been where you're at right now and have set themselves free. Because I think you deserve to be free, my friend. I really do. I think you're a good person. And I think that you have been twisted into a fucking knot making apologies for evil shit because you think the person doing the evil shit is beyond criticism. And I'm telling you, man, nobody is beyond criticism.
Yeah.
Certainly not some God who claims to be all-powerful, which means every single thing falls back on him. If this God is truly perfect, there is no room for error. You don't get to make excuses when you claim to be fucking perfect. And you're making excuses for this God because you have to, because he needs you to, because he's nothing without your excuses. And that isn't perfection. That's weakness. That's pathetic. That's what you're worshiping. A weak, sniveling worm of a creature that tells people to hurt and own each other for his own arrogance. And you are bigger than that and better than that and can be free of that. And I hope you reach out to people to help you get there, David, because I think you're a good person. I think you deserve it.
Well, I think you're a good person too, Forrest and John. You know, I appreciate,
Thank you.
you talking, and
I appreciate you, David.
Okay. And I'll, watch your show, like I say, I just, I'm going back and forth on a lot of these things, and it's more difficult than you can imagine.
No, it's not, because a lot of us have been there. You're not alone, David.
Yeah.
You got a big community here, people that want to help you out. So I hope you keep calling back and keep talking to us about this.
Okay.
And I hope you get engaged in the comment section as well. And no, there's going to be a lot of people that have a lot of different emotions, and some of them are going to be nice, some of them are not. But you got to brave that storm, brother, because I think you're worth it.
Okay. Well,
all right.
Anyway,
take care,
thanks
David.
for your time. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye, David. Good dude, David. Good dude. Good dude trapped in a bad religion.
Yeah. I think that ended on a pretty good note there, which was a totally different direction than I was going with it. I was kind of being a little bit of a dick about it, but
no, you have the right to, because it is frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, it really kind of grinds my gears whenever somebody is saying that, like, well, God's laws are the most morally just laws, or that, there's like good morals that are wrapped up in the Bible. Like, that really kind of gets to me.
Yeah, no, and I get it. I get it. If David hadn't been at least honest enough to say that he was having problems with it, I would have been a dick too. I would have torn him apart. But like the fact that he was at least honest enough, and that's what we were talking about earlier. We were talking about callers that we want. Like, I don't expect David to know everything about everything. I expect David to be honest and say, fuck, this actually kind of sucks. And I don't know why I believe this, but I do. Like, that's so much of a better answer than just quoting some other scripture or some other shit, man.
Yeah, no, I totally agree about that.
We've got 2 callers left. One theist, one atheist, and it's already almost 10 o'clock, which is usually when we try to wrap things. And I can never I refuse to remember. Do we read super chats on this show?
Nope.
Not on the Sunday show.
Hell yeah. All right. Fuck all of you who have been sending in money. Well, okay, so we can do these 2, and then, I don't know, do you have a hard cutoff on your end, John?
No, not necessarily.
Arden is the only slave that we agree with. She's locked into this. She cannot go anywhere else. She is beholden to us no matter how long we run the show.
Please help me.
So we will go with our theist caller first. We've got Pat, pronouns he, him, calling in from oscillating hemorrhoids. What? That's who is a theist who says that physics is not absolute. That's a big claim. Pat, you're on the line with Forrest and John. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. What's up?
Not a whole lot, man.
I just want to say
a great show.
Yeah, I just want to say oscillating hemorrhoids is probably the best way to describe Ohio.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is kind of true.
It's a bad place. It's a bad place. So, Pat, you say physics isn't absolute. What do you mean by that? Because I can read that a few different ways. So, like, what are you actually talking about?
So basically, what I'm saying is, what I see physics as is it's a field of study, and when you have sort of the laws of physics, what I'm saying is they don't always apply.
John, you're an engineer. What kind of engineering do you do again?
Software and computer engineering.
Okay, so you would have some physics training, but I don't know. It's not. You might have the same kind that I do. I just wanted to know if you were like a mechanical engineer, that'd be a totally different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, I started off being an electrical engineer, which means that you have to have at least up to physics 3. So, I mean, I'm pretty well versed in physics.
You have more physics training than I do. Then, yeah, because I did like undergrad physics with trig, not calculus. I did like the basic stuff. So, yeah, okay, cool. So I'll defer to you for most of this. Then, would you say that physics don't always apply?
I mean, I don't know what that means exactly. Like, are there things that we can't currently describe in physics? I mean, sure, but I mean, these are like, edge case sort of things. And physics has changed in the past. Like, with Newton, Newton developed calculus in order to be able to explain, like, the orbits of planets and stuff like that. Yeah. And so, like, it has changed. So, I mean, physics is a description of the reality that we perceive. And until, and typically math and science, it doesn't change until there's something that we can't explain. And then we have to generally change science and math in order to understand what we're newly perceiving. And so, I mean, I guess I don't know where the conversation is going with pointing out, whether or not physics can change or whether or not physics is an all-encompassing description of reality.
That's a good clarifying question. Pat, what do you think? What are you talking about?
Well, sort of what I'm saying, you talked about the sort of edge cases that physics can't explain. That's sort of what I'm getting into, is that I feel like, I'm not saying you guys personally, but a lot of skeptics or atheists will say that anything supernatural that would seem to defy the laws of physics could not happen purely for that reason. And they may say that anyone who believes they experience something like that it's a delusion. So what I'm kind of saying is,
it's that. Oh, sorry, you go ahead, John.
Well, I was just going to say that I was just going to kind of, I guess, explain the secular perspective on that, which I can be a little verbose about that. So why don't you go ahead first there for us? I don't want to talk over you.
I was going to just, no, you're fine. I was just going to clarify that I'm like, if someone calls and says that they've had an experience that seems to defy the laws of physics, my argument isn't going to be that definitely for sure they are delusional. I'm going to say that it is much more likely that they're delusional, by orders of magnitude more likely that they are delusional than that actually happened. We have yet to see definitively, clearly, in an actual, like, empirical way, we have yet to have any evidence whatsoever of anything ever that defies the laws of physics. So if you're going to say, actually, I know something that did defy the laws of physics, I'm going to be very skeptical of you. And I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm saying that you being drugged, or you having a gas leak in your house, or you going crazy for a minute, or you having a bad dream that you didn't know was a dream, or you hallucinating, or you being the subject of an international multi-billion-dollar spy probe designed for the sole purpose of fucking you with you just to make you feel weird so that, Vladimir Putin could have a good laugh on a Sunday afternoon. All of that shit is much, 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 much more likely than actually you saw something that defied the laws of physics. That's what my claim would be.
Okay, so that's fair. Basically, what I would just say is when I think there's so many stories that people have of not necessarily that defies the laws of physics, maybe, but it points to a sort of a connection with the other side.
Well,
I
so
think
sorry for interrupting. Whenever I hear some kind of miracle claim or some claim that something defies physics, I do think about what Forrest pointed out, you just being mistaken or you being delusional, something like that. But also I think about, well, what's the most likely explanation for this, right? If you look at the past as far as claims of things defying nature or things defying physics, you will see the proclivity of answers that we come to are natural. Like some kind of natural process that we don't understand yet, either personally or as a species, or it's just something that we need to change science or physics in order to explain and understand. Right? We could point to several different things, like gravity is one thing that has changed somewhat recently, I guess, in math, and there's other things that you could say have changed in science and math that have changed because we've experienced things that we couldn't understand at that point, but then we later could explain it naturally. So whenever I hear about these things, I initially go to, well, it's probably just some kind of natural thing that we don't understand yet, because of the proclivity of these supernatural things in the past that have just turned out to be something natural. Like a good example of this is the miracle claims of the statues of Mary crying, right? One particular instance of that was that a shitter was leaking on the statue and was dripping on the statue and made it look like he was crying, right? There was a shitter that was right above it. It had leaky pipes, and so leaky shit water dripped on the statue of Mary. That is a natural explanation. That's something that we can understand. That's something that we can explain. That's something we can investigate. The same thing has happened for multiple different crying statue claims, as well as like the Portuguese dancing sun miracle, as well as all of these other miracles that have supposedly happened and we couldn't explain at the time. We've been able to explain them since. And so I guess when you say like things in the past that have superseded nature or somehow broken the laws of nature, I would need specific instances for you to give me in order to understand whether or not you're just saying things that you've been told, or if this is something that you've really researched into and it actually does like break the natural order of reality. Like the ambiguous claims don't really help us out in these particular types of conversations, at least for me.
right. So, I guess I could get into some specific scenarios. I don't have them memorized or anything, but there was a particular book I read that had a lot of stories of, when I say defies physics, it seems to be, well, specifically people going through injuries that would most certainly kill or paralyze them, and they deal with no pain, such as people getting stabbed completely through the body, and they pull the knife out, and there's no blood; it just seals back up.
Like immediately,
in a particular,
like they immediately heal back up, like they're Wolverine.
Yeah. Now I can't. I don't remember any specific cases of this, but
here's the thing, man. Like that's just. I'm sorry. You've barely gotten a word in edgewise, and I really do feel bad for that. But like the problem is you keep saying a thing, and then we kind of have to like clarify, like, hey, that doesn't make sense for these reasons. So I hope you understand. We're not trying to be assholes here, but like just what you're saying, that like there's instances in which people didn't feel pain when they were injured. Yeah, endorphins. That happens, or sever a nerve in the right way, and you get shit like that. That happens. Medical anomalies and weird, bizarre shit like that happen all the time. Somebody gets stabbed, and there's no crazy bleeding. Yeah, as someone who's cut up a lot of people in my life, I can tell you there's lots of ways where you can very, very precisely poke into somebody and not hit any like sizable blood vessels, and you would have very little bleeding. But like, it's very, very rare, and rare things do happen. Now, I don't fucking believe you when you say that somebody healed up like Wolverine all at once. That didn't happen. But like, just the idea that weird shit could happen, yeah, weird shit happens. We all agree weird shit happens. The question is that weird shit magical? Or is it just weird shit? And I would ask you, Pat, how do you tell the difference between something freaky and rare that happens that is not a miracle as opposed to something that is a miracle? What's the defining factor?
Okay, well, I would say, I guess you have to analyze, is there any possible explanation? And a lot of times there could be that we just don't know. But in some cases, I think there just seems to be, there is no explanation that you could even think of, and I haven't really dealt with anything personally, so I don't mean to.
I'm gonna ask you the same question because you didn't answer it. You just reworded it. So I'm gonna ask you the same question. How do you tell the difference between something that has no explanation and must be miraculous, and something that has no explanation that you know of, that you cannot figure out the answer to, but actually is a totally natural process?
Okay, so are you basically asking how do you tell what is magical or what is just weird, but there is an explanation that we don't know of?
Yeah, I'm asking exactly what I asked. You, long and short of it, yeah, you said that this is there's a difference. You said that there's a difference between things which we cannot explain, that we have no definition for or explanation for, and things that actually just don't have an explanation. And I'm asking you, how do you tell the difference between something that you cannot explain as opposed to something that cannot be explained?
Well, I guess it's only through my own perspective. It is just if I personally can't explain it, just using what I know. So what I how I would judge that is just I think through, based on my knowledge, what is an explanation for this. I admit, there's obviously, there could be sometimes explanations I don't know. I just think in some cases, well, I guess would you want another example of a particular scenario?
I would like you to grapple with what you are saying. Because what you are saying right now, I think if I were to say to you about any other belief, I don't think you'd accept it. Like, I don't know what God you believe in. It says you're a theist, but like, I am pretty confident, Pat, that if I were to talk to you about a God that you didn't believe in, and I said that I just kind of go based on my own, what I do and don't know. I'm a biologist. I don't know that much stuff about chemistry or physics. So when I see something happening, like when I see these really cool chemical processes, I don't know what they are. So I just kind of assume that must be the work of Zeus. And when I see these really cool physics things, these physics demonstrations that I don't really understand, I don't know anything about it. So I'm guessing that's gotta just be Odin, is what that is. I don't think you'd accept that. And I don't think you mean that. I think you're saying that because it's convenient for you and it fits into the box that you live
in. Yeah, I guess that's not what I mean. I'm not really too good at explaining all the time what I'm trying to say. So I guess okay. I would say I'm very open about, weird shit that is it would be very rare for me to conclude this is some sort of miracle or something that, I guess, a miracle would be the way to explain it. I just think there's certain instances where that is the only possible explanation.
Well, let
What's
me ask you
wrong?
this.
Yeah, you go ahead. I've been talking this whole time.
No, that's fine. What do you think the likelihood is that you just simply don't know or you don't understand versus it being magical?
Well, it depends on the case. But if we're talking about the extreme examples, I would say maybe 95%. It actually is magical. 5%, I just don't know.
How are you coming to that conclusion that it's more likely to be magical than it is you just don't understand? Like, I'm assuming you don't understand quantum physics, but would you think that quantum physics is magic?
Well, quantum physics is the interesting thing is that it's a totally different set of rules for the physics of larger objects.
Okay.
Now, what I say is
fine. That's not what I asked, but let me, I'll take it out of the quantum physics realm. Do you understand how a computer works?
I do not.
No, not really.
Okay. Does that make a computer magical?
No, it's based on people who do understand that, who are able to put it together.
Right. So my point in bringing this up, right. My point in bringing this up is that you don't personally understand how a computer works, but there are people that understand how computers work, thus not making it magical. So if you were to live by what you said earlier, if you don't understand how a computer works or how the screen right now is displaying an image, you're telling me that you think that it's more likely to be magical than not.
I think that May Spitfire in the chat understands computers exactly as much as I do. They just wrote, "You push the beep boop button and it glows," and that is exactly how I understand computers as well.
Yeah, well, I guess for that, I don't see that as magic because I know that people have actually. That's a whole field of study, computer science. Now I get where you might say, how does that not apply to other things that maybe we just haven't discovered yet? I think it's possible, but certain people. I guess to bring it back to a certain example of people sort of instantaneously healing, that is not a typical thing that happens. With computers, anybody who has the knowledge can make that.
Pat, right. I get what you're saying here. Wolverine magically healing is an incredible thing that we can't explain right now with our current understanding of how human bodies work. But I mean, the reason why I have a problem with just automatically, like even if this Wolverine person existed, right? Just fantastical healing ability and everything like that. I think about that particular situation, but then I also compare it to like how societies have operated in the past as far as like things that they don't understand. At one point in time, people dance naked in the rain or like out there, in nature to cause rain, right? They thought rain was magical. The ancient Greeks thought that lightning was somehow magical because, Zeus would have been the Greeks. Zeus, like anywhere that lightning struck, they felt like that was a holy place because Zeus struck it with lightning, right? They didn't understand how lightning works. So like, if I'm looking at the proclivity of these things to be explained naturally, I know that rain is like an exchange of energy that happens with, substances like water mainly, on Earth at least. And so like water, it's an exchange of energy that causes water to change states. Lightning is a difference in, electrical charges in the atmosphere, and all of these other things that can be explained naturally that we understand now and we just didn't understand at the time. but we blamed God or we proposed some kind of magical explanation for it. So I think about those things in the past, and then I take that and I apply it to anything that I don't personally understand now. How can Wolverine heal so quickly? Well, maybe there's some kind of mutation, right? To stick with the X-Men thing, maybe there's some kind of mutation that greatly increases the healing factor of somebody, which is what Wolverine's magical power is. And so, like, what if there's some kind of situation where somebody just heals really quick, right? That could be totally a thing. There's actually this one tribe in the South Pacific who's got a certain mutation that in their hemoglobin, I think it is, that allows them to stay underwater for much longer periods of time. And that's because
Those
of
are the Baju
the environment.
people, and the mutation is with their spleens.
Oh, spleens. That's right. Sorry, it's their spleens.
They have way bigger spleens.
And it allows them to stay underwater for longer periods of time. That's because they're a fishing culture, and they dive down to fish and like to harvest things. Like, it's very important for them to do that. So evolutionarily speaking, they've developed in such a way where they can stay underwater for much longer periods of time. Now, that doesn't mean that they're Aquaman, right? It doesn't mean that they're like superhuman in the ways of X-Men would be super. They're not, Namor or anything. But it is explainable on a natural level. So that's where my mind goes with all this. Sorry, I know that I took a really long time to get to natural shit is natural, but that's where I go.
Yeah, my big thing, Pat, is just like, what's wrong with I don't know? Like, what's the deal? Like, why can't you, if you're willing to say I don't know about certain shit, why not just say because there's certain shit that certain different scientists know, and there's certain shit that nobody knows. Why not just say I don't know? I don't know is okay.
Yeah, well, I guess that's sort of what I'm saying, but when it comes to the natural stuff, I mean, yeah, I do accept that it is possible that if these people, and I haven't done extensive research into these particular cases, but assuming they are true, it is possible they just had some certain mutation or something. Now, I don't know if we could maybe take it to a sort of a different side of this of synchronicities, so-called sort of meaningful coincidences. I don't know if you guys would want to talk about how you feel about that.
I don't
know what that means.
Point.
Okay, so basically what this is it's basically a coincidence that could be considered a coincidence, but it would seem so unlikely that the person who experiences it tends to see it as a certain message. It sort
How
of
do you
goes
determine
back
the
to
likelihood of it?
Well, I guess okay, so I guess to give an example, so let's say you were thinking of a certain animal that is a very rare animal. I know, Forrest, you mentioned you were a biologist, so I don't know if you is that more just with humans, or do you study like certain species of animals?
I specialize in humans. Yeah, I've been my last 4 or 5 years of my training has been really focused on humans.
Okay, well, let's just say, whether or not you're a biologist, that you just have an interest, someone has an interest in a certain species. They've been reading about a certain, let's say, a bird that is a very rare bird that is possible to exist and show up in their area, but it's very rare. And I
Sure.
guess maybe this is a bad example because, but let's just say it's very rare to see this particular bird, and when they start researching it, they happen to see it all the time. Well, even though it's actually very rare to see,
That
So that's
stuff happens.
maybe that's not a great example,
Well,
but
yeah. So
that's
let me
kind of
ask
what I'm
you this.
getting
I-
into.
Let me ask you this. If I just, I'm getting close to the end of my car payment, right? And so like I need a new car, and I really like Dodge Challengers and Chargers. And you know, whenever I go around in the city, I see so many Dodge Challengers and Chargers. I guess that means that, you know, it's not a coincidence that I'm seeing that these Challengers and Chargers, because I like those kinds of cars. There's no way that's a coincidence, and that it's somehow, you know, I'm just noticing them more, right? It's got to be a sign from God that I need to buy a Challenger. I mean, I'm going to use that later
well,
on my wife to allow me to do that. But I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
you're telling us, hey, what if coincidences weren't coincidences? But like, what if they are?
What I'm sort of getting into is you talked about how do you determine the likelihood of a coincidence. In that particular instance, that would be very likely because that's a very common car to see that around.
Is it?
I'm sort of just well.
I don't know, man.
It's at least I don't know much about cars, but at least it's possible that you could see a certain type of car a lot. I guess
I feel like
think
this
there's
is a very
certain
general
situations.
experience that people have. Like people, you know, see, you know, think of something they like, or they notice something that they like, and then they just notice those things more often because they're looking for them. Like, that's a perfectly natural explanation for it. It's not that there's more of a frequency of them happening for any particular transcendental reason. It's just that they're noticing them more. And so, like, the same thing could be said with, you know, your fantastical bird or anything like that. I don't know what any of this has to do. Like, you're talking about this being evidence of a God, right? Like, that there are coincidences that aren't coincidences, and it's somehow God trying to communicate with us. Is that what we're getting to here?
Seems like the direction we're going.
Yeah, I guess what I would
Okay,
say
if that's
is
a direction that we're going,
is
you yeah, but you're not really. So I asked about the likelihood, how you're determining it, and you're just giving me, oh, I just feel like it's it's more likely not a coincidence. You're not actually giving me any kind of reason as to why it's not and why it points to God. Like, I feel as if coincidence is much more likely than an all-powerful being deciding to make mundane things coincidental. Like, I feel like an all-powerful God that could directly message you would do that.
yeah. Well, what I'm saying is what in one of these particular ideas is that it's not necessarily God, but it's family members or someone close to you who has passed away. The idea is their soul still exists, and they are uh, sort of watching you in life and sending you a coincidence as like a sign in a particular situation. And I
don't
actually just read a
know.
book about that.
Right, Pat. I don't know how any of that practically operates in reality. Like, I don't understand how a ghost can cause coincidences to happen like that. In that particular way. I also don't believe that souls exist. And I get the feeling that Forrest doesn't either. That he doesn't believe that souls exist. So, I mean, you would need to actually provide proof that that a soul exists, but I feel like at the beginning of that, we need to define what a soul is.
You were talking about just
Okay,
for
so
funsies. You were talking a little while about like rare birds and how unlikely it would be to find. It just immediately made me think of this clip, which I'm now going to put in the chat. This is from the BBC back from 2009. It was a series called Last Chance to See, and I guess they were going around the world looking for rare endangered animals, and they were looking for this thing called a kakapo, which is a critically endangered parrot, which is this big, flat, flightless parrot called an owl-faced parrot. It looks all weird, and this TV show looking for endangered animals, critically endangered. This thing is very, very, very rare. Not only did they find it, but it climbed up on the cameraman's head and tried to fuck him. It fucked the cameraman's head. So like you're talking about like, how what a coincidence. So is this God? Is this God communicating to us that we need to let parrots fuck our heads or something? Like what's going on? Just shit happens, man. And I don't understand how you're going to sit here and tell me that sometimes shit happens and it's magic and sometimes shit happens and it isn't magic. And you have no way of discerning between the two, but you know for sure those are the options. It doesn't get me anywhere. I don't know where we're going with this.
I guarantee you 100% that cameraman looked at another person, was like, I should really call her.
Yeah. No one's quite slapped my ears about quite like that parrot and Mary.
Yeah. So I guess John was talking about souls. So I guess if you guys want to keep going, would you rather go back into coincidences, or do you want to get into John was talking about how do you define a soul? Would you want to talk about how I feel about that?
I'll be very honest with you, Pat, and I will leave it up to John. For me, we've been on the call for 30 minutes, and we really haven't gotten anywhere past the fact that coincidences exist. That doesn't tell us anything. And you have admitted that you don't have a really solid metric for determining what's just a coincidence and what's actually a miracle. And on top of that, we don't know that there is a guy that could make miracles. We don't know that miracles happen in the first place. We don't know if there's a God, how it causes the miracles. We don't know of anything super, like you're claiming that there is this thing called a miracle and that you know something about it, but you can't even identify what they are with any sort of reliability. So I'd be happy to talk to you about souls, but I don't think this is the call to do it. I think we've already been doing 30 minutes of this, and I think we should move on. But I'll leave it to John if you agree. If you want to stay here, I'm happy to stay here.
No, souls conversation is definitely a different conversation to have.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah. So call us back sometime about souls, Pat, and we'd be happy to talk about that. But as for right now, I don't think we've learned too much, and I think we're ready to move on.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess I probably would call back about that sometime, but thanks for taking the call. Was an interesting conversation.
All right. Thank you, Pat. Take care. Bye.
Bye, Pat.
Can I share my favorite quote from that last call? I wrote it down. Rain is an exchange of energy that happens with substances like water mainly. Godless Engineer 2024.
Well, I mean, I was just thinking about how there's other planets that actually have like different substances that form rain and everything.
Oh, no, you were dead on. Nothing wrong with that. Put that shit on a t-shirt. All right. We got one last call. This one's from Ash, pronoun she, her, calling in from Cavernous Anus, who's been on the phone for 3 hours and 17 minutes wanting to talk to us, and I really appreciate her patience. Ash is an atheist, and she wants to know, how can one maintain empathy for conservatives? That can be tough, especially nowadays. Ash, you're on the line with Forrest and John. How you doing? Oh, no. Ash, you better be there. Tap your phone and wake it up. If your phone's asleep, we can't hear you.
Ash might be asleep.
I wouldn't be surprised. She was on the phone for 3 hours. Ash going once. Ash going twice. Ash, I don't want to drop you. You've been on the hold for so long. Make sure your phone's awake. We can't hear you. I think that's it. I think we gotta move on. I think that's the end of the show.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna call it. Good night, Ash.
Yep. So sorry, Ash. What do you think about maintaining empathy for conservatives right now? Because like there's a lot of fucking around and finding out that's been happening, and I'm just kind of curious, like what's your advice on
what gets me? I can understand that certain people are scared. The defining issue of this last election was shit like grocery prices and stuff. And people are like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to feed my kids. And if that's the thing that any candidate is running on, I can understand how that would be extremely compelling. Because I agree, we live in a country that is really, really, really suffering in terms of inflation, in terms of economics. We are hurting badly because a lot of greedy assholes are hiking up prices on things. Corporations and CEOs are making record profits, bringing home record-breaking paychecks, while more and more people are starving and destitute. The middle class is shrinking. We're having only the super rich and people who can't afford to eat. There is not a single place in this country where or a single state, I should say, where a full-time job at minimum wage can afford you an average one-bedroom apartment. People work in several jobs. People can't take care of their kids. People starving. People homeless. People hungry. People desperate. And I can understand if anybody, devil himself, gets up in front of you and says, "I can give you food and I can help make sure you feed your family," that they would look past a lot of shit. What I can't understand is when you have this person up here demonizing immigrants, people of color, trans people, gay people, women, someone who is attacking every marginalized group that he can possibly attack, someone who is going out of his way to make people feel unsafe at his events unless they agree with him. Someone who is violent and hateful and has spoken such evil of so many people who did not deserve it, who is so clearly only interested in his own ego and has a track record, a demonstrated track record of caring more about being right and looking good than he cares about people's lives. I will never get over that dude. I know this is one of the more benign things he's ever done comparatively, but like drawing a fucking bubble on a hurricane map with a Sharpie so that he could tell people that it was going to hit a town that it definitely wasn't going to hit, because it matters more to him that he is correct than that he is distributing appropriate life-saving information. The way that he handled COVID, the way that he admitted saying he's going to downplay it all the time, the way he said he's going to, it just blows away and it's just magic and it's fine, and the way he would not say, "I was wrong," no matter how many people died. If that's the guy telling you that I'm going to lower your grocery prices, I cannot understand why anybody would allow that. And it's not just about critical thinking. It's not just about saying, well, if I look at this thing, he's done a lot of bad things wrong, therefore I think he might do some bad things wrong here as well. It really just is about empathy. Now, I cannot understand how you can listen to somebody, whether you have, trans friends or LGBT friends or people of color or immigrants or whatever in your family, disabled people, veterans, any of the people who have been demonized and attacked and hurt by this man. Whether or not you are personally connected to these people, I cannot understand how you can isolate your empathy in such a way that you can say, yeah, but you know what? If all those people are hurting, at least my eggs are cheaper. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because it isn't a starvation situation for the people who voted for him. It's not. It's a comfort situation a lot of the time. Rationing. I will ration. I will fucking struggle. I will go a little bit. I will skip a meal if I know for sure that everybody is safe. And the fact that that isn't a hard line is something that I can't wrap my head around. And I don't think that's unique to this election. I think that's something that has been ingrained in a lot of Americans because of the system we live in. And it's been taught to people like that person we talked to, I forgot who it was, who said that it's like human nature to be selfish and self-interested and greedy. And it's not. You've been taught that that's the case in order to justify you being selfish and greedy and to be able to excuse billionaires being selfish and greedy. If an immigrant skips their taxes, you want to deport them for cheating the country. If Donald Trump skips his taxes, you call him a smart businessman because that's the capitalist world you live in. So, as far as empathy, I can empathize with being scared. I can empathize with being confused. I can empathize with being very uncomfortable. When you're in a position of privilege, equality feels like oppression, and I can empathize with people being uncomfortable and feeling like they're being oppressed. I cannot empathize with them continuing on that feeling in light of all the evidence. I cannot empathize with them putting their rights and their comfort above other people's safety. I cannot empathize with somebody throwing millions of people under the bus for the sake of an easy election. I can't empathize with any of that. And yeah, man, I can understand people who want to cut off relationships right now. I really can. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any kind of compassion for conservatives right now. Like, for instance, here's a good example. We've got, one of the main reasons, like you said, for people voting for Trump is that he said that he was going to bring down the cost of groceries. There's several clips out there where it's back to back. He's like, we're going to lower the cost of eggs and groceries, the milk. Oh my God, the milk. We're going to lower the prices, right? He said that repeatedly. And then just recently this week, Trump came out and said, this is really difficult to lower grocery prices once they're up. And so he's like, he's prepping his audience.
I didn't even realize what groceries were. That was one of the things also. I didn't realize all the things they meant by groceries. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
right. Yeah. And so he's already prepping his audience, his base, to be let down because he's not going to be able to do that. Right. And so my feelings about that is like, well, you fucked around and now you're finding out. I have compassion for all of us that are going to be finding out about the fucking around that happened. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of conservatives that are going to be incredibly hurt by what happens. And I could point out more things. Like, for instance, the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, they're looking to cut $516 billion from the budget to include veterans' health care. And so the veterans that voted for Trump are going to get their health care taken away from them and replaced with very expensive private health care. And not only that, but Republicans are now meeting on the Hill, like, to make hard, quote unquote, hard decisions about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. These are all things that, like, the majority of the Republican base depend upon. And so, like, there's going to be a lot of finding out. And I'm not going to have a lot of compassion for the bad decisions that conservatives have made, but I do have compassion for everybody in general for the finding out that we are collectively going to have to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. And that's the thing is, like, I can understand someone being frustrated with the political system, with the economic system, with how they are being failed and underrepresented. I can understand and I can empathize with that. But then also there's the issue that the day after election day, after Trump was announced as the winner, the Google search for what is a tariff and who pays for tariffs and shit spike like hell. All these people like, yeah, tariffs are going to save the country. Vote for it, get it, and then like, what is a tariff? I can't empathize with that. I can't do that. Like, and especially now when you have these, there's so many conservatives who are now coming out and being very angry, and they're like, "Oh my God, he's gonna fucking ruin the country. How is it? We can't support this. Doesn't make any sense." Like, yeah, if only lots and lots of people had been telling you that, and you made it a sides issue. Well, you believe that, therefore it's wrong, as opposed to it's wrong. And it's like, dude, I was ready. I've criticized Joe Biden. I criticize Kamala Harris. I criticize Barack Obama. I'm not in a fucking cult. But you have this cult mentality of this man can do no wrong and everything he says has to be right. And only after the fact will you find a reason to blame Democrats for the things that he does. I can't do it. There's this, that's something that I cannot understand. I can't wrap my head around. I can't empathize with in any way. So like I said, I understand entirely. There's I've got in-laws and shit that are very Republican, and same thing that I said to, I believe it was David, just like you, I promise you do not want to have this conversation. Like that's the best I can do for you. Because I guarantee if you have this conversation, one of us isn't going to be speaking to each other for a long time. And I would not blame anybody for, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're LGBT, especially if you're trans, out of that, if you're the T in that LGBT, I would not blame anybody, especially if you're an immigrant, especially if you're disabled, especially if you're a veteran, especially if you're on Social Security, especially if you're on any kind of a fixed income, especially if you rely on government assistance, especially if you are, you know, in I guess you could say a non-traditional marriage, for so many especiallys, I could totally understand it and could not fault you in any way if you were like, I am never going to speak to this person again because they voted for this guy who has said on stage repeatedly that he wants my rights taken away and doesn't think that I should exist. Fuck you. I could not fault them for that even a little bit. And I'll be very frank with you. You know, I know I'm speaking in front of a large audience, and I'm going to be very careful about how much I say, but like I can say there are more than a few people. There are more than a few cases in which that is very difficult for me not to do, and I struggle with it a lot. And it is, you know, I have my reasons and my things, and that's fine. Everybody does. I'm not but I can tell you I understand that struggle. Definitely not as well as a lot of people do, but very well. Anyway, that's our show. I think that's the end of it. Before we wrap up, I want to thank Stephanie Helms from Many Egrets for being our call screener tonight. I want to thank Arden Hart, our producer, for producing tonight. I want to thank all of our moderators in the chat for helping us out and making sure the chat stays civil. I want to thank all of the people in the chat, all the chatters, even the ones that suck and get themselves banned. Call the fuck in next time. Don't get banned in the chat. Nobody wants to hear your shit in the chat. Call the fuck in. I want to thank the person who waited on hold for over 2 hours to tell me that I need to learn, that they're going to educate me on how to talk about trans issues. Call back sometime. Let's talk about it. You dropped right when we would have probably gotten to your call pretty soon. I want to thank that fish bitch in the comment section for driving up our engagement and picking so many fights while spinelessly refusing to call in to tell me what a woman is, because they clearly they know and they will not answer me in the ways that we do this. I want to thank the guy who thinks that I'm running from the FBI and harasses me occasionally on Instagram. Call in, please call. I've never wanted to take a call more badly than that motherfucker who refuses to call in because he won't give me content. He just wants to expose me in front of an audience of 3 people in a comment section, but he won't expose me in front of tens of thousands of people because it would benefit me monetarily, as if his comments don't benefit me monetarily. God damn, I want that guy to call in so bad. I want to thank John Gleason for being such a good friend and such a good person and such a good co-host. And I also want to thank my wife for giving me this. This is pure gallium that she gave me as a Christmas present this year. How great is that? And I want to thank Faya Halo. I still don't know if it's Faya or Faya. Somebody's got to tell me. But they're in the comment section within seconds of the show ending and putting out timestamps, and it's fucking awesome. They're a great person, and I really appreciate them. John, anything you want to end with?
Yeah, no. I just want to say thank you, Forrest, for being the great person that you are, and for being a good host tonight. Thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I was trying to think of everybody that I could possibly thank. Just I wanted to drag it out because this is the most awkward part of the show, and it makes me
I was going to run the credits on you. I was like, once you said Amber, I was like, listen, I love her so much. If you're watching, I love you. But that's like the 5th thank you we've just gotten. Mm-hmm. Let's wrap this shit up.
All right, everybody, have an awesome rest of your day. Stay weird. Smash that subscribe button. Go subscribe to my channel. Learn about whales. See you this later on. Bye.
Subscribe to mine to learn about whale dick.
Whale dick. You better follow through. I'm just gonna keep waving. Just strapped here. This is what this show.